yesterday I met 6 new business opportunities.
Right.
So I was like, what's going on? Suddenly they're just... And they were all massively different. I mean, yesterday I met someone with 0 money, and then they walked in and came in and with a great idea, an amazing business.
What was that?
It was, actually I can't tell you what it was, but it was a plant-based business, but, and everyone was like, not a bloody plant-based business, but actually it was, I didn't even know it was plant-based, because I basically went in, I turned up at the kitchen yesterday, and I was bloody hungry. And
so sorry, you went to them?
No, they all came in here yesterday.
Okay, sorry,
we had loads. And anyway, yesterday I was bloody starving. Oh, excellent! Someone's doing a tasting upstairs. Pork pies, yum yum.
Yeah.
Steak and kidney, yum yum. And I was like, oh god, all naughty steak and kidney pie, delish, and all that.
Yeah.
Porky pies, sausage rolls, chucking them in there, yum yum. And I said, anyway, right, business, what's next? She went, that is next. I was like, what's that then? She went, that's the plant-based business. I'm like, you're fucking joking.
No way.
No, seriously.
So it's what?
Gravy.
Plant-based.
Proper,
sausage
really.
rolls
Yeah,
stuff.
and actually, this guy's, he's are you recording this?
No. We'll record this way.
Oh, well, we should record. Yeah, we should record. Anyway.
We'll jump in a sec, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, it was just great. And I'll tell you about it in the podcast if that's useful. But it was fucking good. And these 2 guys, they were brilliant. And one of them, he'd been in the sort of 5 years in the music industry, and he'd been like a chef, and he'd sort of done the drugs and the booze. And
Mate, those people were the most interesting. If I met
you see them, and you just go, I know your life story.
Music industry. That's why I'm obsessed with chefs.
Because a lot of them were close to the same rock stars.
They're kind of, Anthony Bourdain made them the rock stars of food.
Yeah.
Bourdain was obsessed with Marco Pierre White. Marco Pierre White was, he had...
Who was he obsessed by? The Great White?
He was the first. He grew up in a council estate in Leeds, right? He came down here, and that's how he developed the Sloaney accent, because, back in the day it was... now,
Sloane.
Now, like East London's like where all the fucking hipsters are. But back in the day,
and they're all public school boys.
Yeah, I know, it's hilarious. I went to uni with, but I'm one of them basically.
Let's go down to Hoxton and I'm going to put on my East End accent.
Yeah. Hello, mate. Yeah. It's when a private school kid says "calm and bless," I'm like, fucking hell. It's like, calm, bless. I'm about to go and take the Labrador Tilly for a fucking walk. But yes, he came down and. He was from Leeds. He was just kind of like partying on the King's Road, which apparently back in the day in the 70s, 80s, that was the
my
place.
Era.
Yeah.
That was actually when I was in London.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then he created Harvey's, which was in...
Yeah, and he used to throw people out.
Yes. So he was the first rock star chef. And then he created White Heat, which was this seminal book, which is basically... I know you've ever seen the pictures of him.
Smoking the coffee.
Smoking in the coffee.
Him and Peter Saville.
Yes. And then obviously Bourdain was like, right, he's my hero. Bourdain wrote Kitchen Confidential, which was that book.
I didn't read that.
Yeah, that's an amazing book.
I think I've never read as many books as you. Now I feel you're really stupid.
Oh, no, he's
I don't know how you read all these books.
Are you right to come a bit closer?
Oh, sorry. Can I do that?
Yeah, no, I just like reading.
I sit here and like the cricket.
Yeah.
Coming up to bowl. Oh.
So he made chefs. Bourdain then took it to another level with Kitchen Confidential, and then obviously he was putting out all the programs, and then that's kind of how it suddenly, because I've interviewed so many chefs, they're like, it wasn't cool to be a chef in 2000.
Did you interview Bourdain? I don't think I've listened to that.
No. I mean, he's dead now. So yeah,
that shows how little I know. Did he die?
Mate, it's fucking sad. He committed suicide.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, he's probably the biggest inspiration for this podcast.
Oh God. That's so embarrassing.
No, it's all good. But
when did he die?
In 2018, which feels like yesterday. Yeah,
that's embarrassing.
He was seeing a girl. Was with this girl that he's obsessed with, this Italian actress, and she.
Maybe that's why I don't know about it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know about him until really I started watching him in probably 2018. Like, bear in mind, he's been going since 2000.
What were his restaurants?
He owned a restaurant, but in New York, but he never got to 3 Michelin stars. He never got Michelin stars.
Really?
And he became famous at 44. He was late to the game, and they were like, "You're so good at storytelling." And they basically was like, right, a bit like, Idiot Abroad with Carl Pilkington.
Well, obviously, identify with that.
They're a bit like, fuck it, you just go around the world, we'll record you, and go and meet.
So I need to go and watch all this.
Oh my, it's a treasure trove.
That's my weekend ruined. I mean, not ruined, but it's just indoors.
Yeah, he's so good.
And that was the inspiration for this?
Because he was just... Yeah, I wanted to basically just... He was very good at, like, not doing the stories, but he was very good at just kind of... I don't know. When you watch it, you're just like he'll be able to sit. So there's an episode he does with Barack Obama, right? They're in fucking Vietnam. This is when he was the president. They're in Vietnam, sat on these stools, drinking Asahi beer. Not Asahi.
I've seen this clip.
And he's just like, everyone else is like, oh, Barack Obama. He's like, let's have some fucking pho, yeah, and just sit there. And that was his genius, is he could like have a bowl of pho with the president of the United States, and then sat Barack Bourdain's just in like just a ragged t-shirt. Obama's like all suited and booted. But he's amazing. But I don't know where we were going.
I was interested by your the Marco Pierre White story and the fact that he inspired Anthony and
Oh yeah, well that was it. The music industry.
Yeah, and the Rockstar Chefs. So this guy yesterday with the meaty veg, which was brilliant, and there was no shit in it. It wasn't processed. I mean, he was one of those guys. He said he'd been a chef. Turned out, of course, he knew. We'd been around in the Jurassic age together.
Can you keep this bit in, or do you want to?
Yeah. I'm happy with it.
We're rolling there, so we're.
I knew we were, Dan. I've got you. I mean, how many times have I done this? No, he was great. I mean, it'll come clear when we do it. I hope we do it. I think we're going to do it. But they basically turned up yesterday. I think that's a good story, actually, because, of course it is, because everything's a good story. But no, the fact was, I wasn't thinking I'm eating plant-based food. I just went out and going, I'm fucking hungry. There's a pork pie, I'll have that. There's a sausage roll, I'm having that. There's steak and ale, I'll have a bit of that. I mean, just obviously not the whole thing. But I was just grazing away at what I thought was, fantastic. So my synapses were not primed for that's going to taste shit. So the visual just looked amazing. It was like the gravy, the mushrooms, it looked exactly like what I thought it was. And if British hadn't told me, I would have never known. And in fact, we had some friends for supper. Vic and I had, we realised that we're so crap that we hadn't actually invited anyone for supper for ages. We were just running around doing stuff like, being busy. And I said, Vic, I feel really bad because if we invite loads of people, I know that I'm not going to do anything until the last minute, and I'll sort of, tit around with some glasses and lights and drinks and take all the glory for making it look pretty. Yeah. And you will spend 3 days doing some sort of Ottolenghi, mash up with some crazy stuff, and no one will, no one will appreciate it. So why don't we just have a series of scruffy suppers so people sort of rock out, and it's got, you don't have to do loads of cooking. And he said, that sounds like a good idea. And so I said, why don't we just make everything vegetarian so that no one, we'd have to, it's like 15 people or whatever. Quite a lot of people. And just not tell anyone. Yeah. And, and all of them turned up. A few people wearing red trousers, expecting the full beef welly. Few Negronis, sunset, absolutely amazing evening. Everyone tucked in, and it was like, go and help yourself. Massive shepherd's pie.
Veggie shepherd's pie.
Yeah, but no one knew.
Oh, it was all with this product?
No, this was Vic making it with pre-lentils and everything. But the point is that in the last few months, I've had so many people say to me, Jesus, I'm really off animals. I don't know why. There is, when someone starts wearing a mullet and you go, sorry, are you having a fucking laugh? Do you know that you've actually, someone's just given you a mullet? You go, what? And you go, please tell me mullets are not coming back. You're like, I don't think they were ever out, were they, Perry? And they're like, fuck off. And that tipping point, and you go, it's going to happen, isn't it? And then suddenly, mullets are normalised, right?
Well, especially in East London.
Yeah, exactly.
Now.
Well, all the public school kids with their East London accents.
Well, that's what I find crazy is there's now.
But well, let me finish. Because
Sorry,
the point is that I think with the age and stage that I'm at, I've suddenly gone, oh God, I've spotted it. It's happening. I know it's going to happen. And I said this yesterday. I said, had dinner with someone the other day, and it was in La Familia, over the road, that lovely Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
It's been there for 1,000 years. And he turned up, this really good friend of mine, he turned up, and he's been there, he ate there 30 years ago, and he said, God, I haven't been here for like 20 years. And he sat down, he used to be a rock star, actually, he was a legend.
Who was he?
Well, I won't tell you. He's my mate called Gary. He's called Gary. He's called Gary. He's not Gary from, but he was a pop star, and then he turned into a sort of musician, and a filmmaker and all this kind of shit. Anyway, he sat down. That's relevant to our point. He sat down and he was like, "Yeah, I'm sure there's something on here I can eat." I went, "What? It's La Familia, mate. It's like Italian. What do you mean? I came here so that we could just have He went, "Oh, I can't eat any of this." I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, do you want to eat a bunny? Do you want to eat a pig?" I'm like, "Oh, come on." Sure enough, and I looked at her, I was like, actually, this person next door to us started to, I'd been talking to her and her child, and everyone was suddenly going, I'm more plant, I eat more vegetarian. Anyway, I think my prediction is it's just suddenly going to go. It's suddenly going.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, means the absolute world to me. I'd be so grateful for a small favour, please. It is so hard growing a YouTube channel. It is so bloody hard. If you please enjoy these videos, just click the subscribe button. More subscribers equals bigger guests equals better conversations, and hopefully you can learn more as you build your food and drink brand. Thank you so much.
So it was a really interesting point, because this links to what Seth Godin was saying to me, which was because I basically said, you've worked with loads of brands, and he was like, no, I haven't. He gets, I was like, right, that's a fucking faux pas. Off to the races.
Oh, bad boy.
yeah.
I'm sure Seth would never make you feel terrible.
No, I'm joking. But he said, all I do is I notice. And he goes, what I do is I kind of just sit there and I notice things. And it's to your point, it's like going to that restaurant, you're noticing it. And as you said, it's here and it's coming. My opinion on the plant-based movement is...
But it's a stupid word. It's a stupid phrase.
Because I wasn't planning to start here, but let's go into this.
Sorry.
No, this is why I love kind of going in ad lib. But I think it was kind of right products, but they are packaged wrong.
Yeah.
This is what I think. It's I'd love to ask you is, because like loads of them, I think this is still doing really well, but loads of them.
Well, is it?
I don't know. I mean,
I saw them present at the Houlihan Lokey event. This
sounds like a very Perry event, the Houlihan Lokey.
Is it the Houlihan Lokey? So all your listeners. Well, this is something I want to talk about later on, but a lot of your audience, I'd imagine, are trying to build businesses for sale.
Yeah.
So at some point, they're going to need to speak to someone who's going to help sell their business. And when you're little, you don't get anywhere near the big boy, the Houlihan Lokeys, who are an M&A, mergers and acquisitions firm. And what they are is that they're investment bankers who basically bought up all of the little boutiques and made the boutiques that help sell small businesses in different categories. So you've got food and drink, tech, etc. Mm-hmm. So they're now one of the world's biggest mergers and acquisitions firms. And what you do when you need to sell your business is you go along and you have a chat with someone like Sean Brown at Houlihan Lokey about 2 or 3 years before you're going to sell it. Or you come and see Tim, my business partner, something like that. And you say, look, I'm thinking of selling the business, but I need to prepare it. You do need to prepare it. So there's a bunch of questions you need to ask, like, why you want to sell your business and all that stuff. So they interview you and talk to you about that. And then they basically tell you who they think might buy it. And you kind of need to get it ready for sale if you want to sell your business, sell it, because you're going to have to go out and attract a load of people. It's like putting a house on the market. You've got to advertise it, etc. And the thing about someone like Houlihan Lokey or those kind of organisations, there's loads of them. The bigger ones, they tend to look at, £100 million businesses, transactions or more. They sell businesses basically, or they raise money and help people grow. And they start by having these conferences. They have one in New York, they have one in Paris, they have one in London, and they're really good. They get about 1,000, people ranging from idiots like me to, proper people. And to come along, and they invite us along, and they kind of put each of the companies on a stage for 15 minutes, and they basically pitch their asses off about how brilliant their business is, to see whether any of the people in the audience are interested in having a chat with them about putting money in, investing, buying, etc. So it's sort of, that's your moment, and that's a really good thing to think about. If you're thinking about selling your business, it's a really good thing to think about. Start with the end in mind and go, well, look, I'm doing this plant-based business, for example, this. And actually exits are a dangerous word because you should just make a good business. But actually, what is it about your business that's going to be attractive to a buyer? So yet another thing to think about, not a nightmare. It's not just about making consumers happy, because ultimately if you do that, you're going to have a really valuable business. But there are measures for success that actually a lot of founders don't consider. And last night I kind of was talking about this. They don't consider until it's too late.
What are those factors?
Well, profitability is one of them.
Yeah.
Growth, saleability. So a lot of founders will passionately chase lots of tennis balls, like we've talked about before. They'll be like, oh, there's a shiny one. I'm going to go and start I'm going to start a drinks business. Oh, I'm going to add some snacks to that, because with people, people who want drinks want snacks, don't they? And then they'll go and suddenly the snacks business will do better than the drinks business, or not better, but it'll be different.
Yeah.
But it's a completely different business. But you've called it one brand name, and then suddenly you come to sell it to Diageo or Bighams, and say, we don't want bloody snacks. So you've actually reduced the value of your business, because you've actually got a business that would be valuable as a snacks business, but joined up with the drinks business, it's not.
Yeah.
So you've got to demerge it. You've got to say, well, and then, hang on a sec, but it's a brand. So that's not a snacks business anymore. It's a totally, you might have built £3 million worth of snacks and £10 million worth of drinks together, and suddenly your business is £3 million less big because they only want the drink.
Yeah.
So these M&A guys are really good. And so my business partner, Tim, is ex-Rothschild. There's a really famous one. There's a very posh one, not with these accents, called Rothschilds. And then there's the accountancy firms like Deloitte and Grant Thornton and those sort of people. And Tim spent 20 years helping businesses raise money and grow and exit. And actually being in with us for the last year, it's been amazing, because although we've always been doing that, helping them, having that resource now in the front end of our process has actually changed the way that we start doing brand strategies.
How is it? Because I interviewed Libby from Piper. She's fucking amazing.
She is amazing.
So good. And
7-17-70
was brilliant. But she also said this back from the future.
Yeah.
Which is basically what you're saying with different packaging. It's like,
where do you want to be?
How do you actually? It's interesting, because I think it's something I'm beginning to explore more as this podcast kind of evolves. It's for the first couple of years, it's like, how do you stand out in crowded categories? How do you create a really good product? All those were kind of things. Whereas now some of the conversations are like, well, how do you actually sell? And William Kendall said something who did Green and Blacks and New Covent Garden Soup. He says, never plan to sell your business ever, but be ready to sell it tomorrow.
Yeah. Always sale ready.
Yeah, but always be ready to sell it. And let's go into this saleability piece a bit further. Like, we can talk about that whatever it's called, conference.
What? Houlihan Lokey.
Yeah. Sounds like a tiki bar, but no, I'm joking.
Houlihan Lokey, yeah. Well, yeah. I'll get you to come along.
I probably shouldn't be saying.
No. Yeah. I'll get you to come along. I'll get Sean. I'm sure the guys, and we know them all really well. I'll get you. You come along with me.
Yeah, that'd
to
be
the
sick.
next one. Yeah, and I'm sure Sean would love it. You should do podcasts at their event, and actually you should also interview them.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So okay, let's talk about the
They're well
saleability
posh.
piece, because
Like
what would you say are some of the principles that most people don't think about when it comes to the actual exit bit, because they've built the brand, they've got the proposition down. Like, talk to me. Talk to me, darling.
Yes, I'm going to give you the old exit thing. Right, okay, look, this is beautiful because, first of all, you, as a founder of a business, need to get out of bed in the morning and know why the hell you're going to work, okay? So you tend to fall into the following camps. You're either somebody who is wealthy enough to be able to afford to take risks, and therefore you're probably doing what you're doing for fulfillment and being around people. It's almost like a lifestyle business. You might be an incredibly successful business. So lifestyle business is a bit disparaging, but actually you're probably someone who is using your business as a way of getting a whole load of validation, fulfillment, and feeling as if you're making contribution. You'd be taking risks, but you'll be wealthy, and that'll be a different type of persona. I would put my lovely friend Charlie Bigham in that camp. I think Charlie, takes bloody big risks, etc. But ultimately, he doesn't run a business to sell it ever. He's stated, I will never sell this business. Famous last words tomorrow. Bighams, But he is, somebody like that, or someone like these Italian friends of ours, the Rannas, these wonderful family businesses have got these amazing legacies. So if you're one of those people, you don't need to think about this.
Cool.
Most people aren't like that. Mm-hmm. Most people run a business to make money. And they want to make money and have fun, and they want to see growth. And then as they do it, as they start, they're not thinking about the exit. They're thinking about just surviving and getting out. When's the first £1,000 going to land in my bank? Now, when's the 10 grand going to land in my bank, etc. And the 7-17-70 rule applies. And they suddenly get to a point where they go, shit, what am I going to do now? Because I've got a succession problem. I'm old, or I've, maybe my partner's no longer my partner. I feel, unaligned. Maybe some sadness happens, like someone dies or gets ill, whatever. So things change that people don't think about. So there are three things I would say you need to think about when it comes to it's not about exiting, it's about succession. Because when you start a business, you're starting something. It's a bit like having a baby. It's got a life, and it's got to live longer than you have, probably. So you start to think about three things. First of all, the commercials. Second of all, the operation, whichever way around you want to do it. And third, the marketing. Those are the three fundamental things. And if you get your act together and you've got a sound commercial plan that yes, I know the margins are there. I know that this is scalable. I know that that there's a demand for this, obviously fundamentally, and I know that I can that not only is a demand for this, but that demand will grow, and there's a big enough market for this to last and continue. Then it's worth investing in the operation to deliver that.
What are the commercial requirements?
Do you have a product that anyone gives a shit about and actually wants? That's number one. Can you make a minimum of 40% gross margin? Mostly, could you, if you're in food and you're dealing with retailers, can you give the retailer 40 or more % margin? If not, pack up and find a different business.
Yeah.
Can you make 10, 15, 20% EBITDA pretty quickly? Not like in 8 years' time, but once you've started, if you've got a startup, probably the people that are listening to this, most of them are not raising huge amounts of capital, so it's not capital intensive. So they're probably wanting to get to profitability pretty damn quick.
Yeah.
And in fact, a business I met last night started with 2.5 grand, admittedly not in food, 2,500 quid, these two guys, less than 2 years ago. I think it was just 2 years ago, I can't remember. They make stripy boxer shorts for girls, and they're turning over £1 million and making a ton of money. Genius. So I haven't had to, so those guys, we've getting their commercial model right. We've got a product, we can make it the right price, we can get the margins. I mean, that's pretty basic. The next thing is, when I get to, can I see this business getting to 10, 15, 20, 30 million?
I have just discovered a secret weapon. Please, please, please don't tell anyone. This secret weapon helps you get listed, stay listed, and most importantly, grow
This secret weapon is being used by absolutely banging brands like Bold Bean Co., Perfect Ted, Neat, Trip, and Cheeky Panda. No wonder they're absolutely smashing it. But look, are you ready to get your mitts on this secret weapon and absolutely smash it too? I am thrilled, so thrilled to announce our brand new podcast partner, North Star. What is North Star, I hear you thinking? North Star is a monthly subscription to an online platform giving you access to category data, category insights, anytime, any place, anywhere. It's basically the Netflix for challenger brands. It levels the playing field. Why do you need category data? Well, the first thing is making your pitch speak the buyers and retail language is so important. It's going to help you unlock more listings, unlock deeper distribution with existing clients, back the right MPD, and actually understand how your competition is performing. But the even better news, are you ready to rock and roll at your next range review? You no longer need to hire a full-time category manager. Instead, just parachute in North Star when your next Waitrose, Sainsbury's or Tesco range reviews coming up. They're your outsourced in-house partner. Save money. Their team will come in, they'll help you prep, plan and smash your next range review. I'm so excited to be partnering with North Star. Check them out in the episode description below. Delighted to announce the extension of our partnership with the wonderful Billy and Paul from Mackenzie Jones, but even more exciting, they have just launched a brand new brand as part of Mackenzie Jones called MKJ Ignite. MKJ Ignite is a recruitment firm which specialises full shebang, focus entirely on challenge brand space. They work with some incredible brands, Lucky Saint, Good Race, Purdy and Fig, Hunter and Gather, and Real Superfoods. They can support with your hiring needs across all levels, top to bottom, junior entry-level jobs, all the way through up to MD and CEO level. So if you're looking for a field sales stomper, a sales wizard, an ops guru, a supply chain sensei, you name it, MKJ Ignite can help you out. And look, if you're looking to wet your whistle, ignite your curiosity, then check out the poddy we recorded with them back in July. Laden with wisdom, all about like do's and don'ts of hiring and like how to create the perfect job description. You will love it.
How do you see that? How do you have that? How can people get that prudence? This is what I was thinking.
Well, look at the size of the market.
Yeah, because this is really interesting because this was something I was asking Libby about, which is this Back to the Future. Is it's because people are so, founders are so in. I know they try to be like on the business, whatever, but they're fucking in the trenches. There's no two ways about it. But how do you kind of say they're on their shit that they've built? They're trying to take a step back, look through the telescope, and see right where the fuck is this thing going? Like, how do you see the path, the prudent path to 10 million, 20 million? I don't know how you do.
Nice couplet, prudent path.
Prudent path.
Yeah, nick that.
yeah.
What's your? I'm branding that. Thanks, Dan. The prudent path. Yeah. How do you see it? It's quite simple. It's very easy. You just basically look at what market am I actually in? You know, am I in coffee? Massive market. I mean, you know, am I in a big enough market where a small share is going to be a meaningful size of the business? So if the market for, I'll tell you a good one, I think we've talked about this before, tomato juice. Don't go into tomato juice, right? You'd have thought that tomato juice is huge, yeah? I mean, I would have thought it was when I first looked at it. And a friend of mine started a tomato juice business. And I looked at the spreadsheets and I was like, I'm going to have a look at this. It's a tiny market. And most of it's drunk on airlines. And yeah, you're never going to have a big tomato juice business.
Say you're a founder and you've created a.
So sorry, I'll just carry because I realised that I didn't finish my sentence of my thought, which is so take a market like tomato juice. Do you want to be a £50 million business in tomato juice? Well, the market isn't 50 million quid, so you're not going to be 50. So if you want to be a £1 million tomato juice business and it's a £50 million market, then great. Your prudent path to progress is. I just want to make a small business, make a few quid. I'm going to be in tomato juice. I'm going to grow it to, £1, 2, 3 million pounds and take a small salary. And I'm just kind of, that's a type of business. So back to your, how do you identify yourself as either I'm someone who wants to build a legacy, but if you want to build a legacy business, then over the next, let's say you're going to live for 25, 30 years and you want to still be in business, what does that business look like in 25 years' time? Is the market big enough to accommodate your growth? And will you, for example, start day one with £0 in the bank? Realistically, just start with the top line. How much do you want to see that business be in 3, 4, 5 years' time? And then what do you need to believe to keep that growing at, say, 8, 10, 15, 20% a year? You don't have to grow very hard and fast. You can grow businesses very slowly. In fact, ABF, at one point, I don't know if they still do, intentionally specified that they didn't want to see very, very high growth figures because they wanted slow, steady growth, which I think is an extremely...
ABF.
Associated British Foods, where Joe and Beige came from, who own Selfridges, Farnham Mason, Dorest Cereals, all those sort of, those Twinings and stuff. So massive food brand, house of brands. But they as a group are still sort of effectively family owned, majority controlled, I think. And they specified very slow growth. And that's really good because they don't want to race around and just, grow it and flog it. Whereas, say, for example, you're starting a tomato juice business or a chewing gum business or whatever it is, and you said, look, what I want to do is I'm 29 years old, I want to start this business today, and in 5 years' time, I want to sell it for a boatload of money and then do it again and again and again, which is probably what most people do. Then what you need to do is fundamentally go, I'm in a big market, and when I get to that size, what am I bringing to the category? And that's the key thing, where I'm either the best or the only, that someone else can't do at scale, and that when I sell my business to, say, for example, a big company like Heinz or Nestle or Kraft, whatever, that they will instantly say, thanks very much. All we have to do now is put that into our machine and our sales teams are off and you're going to have instant scale. So therefore, scalability is fundamental. So if you can't scale your operation, if you can't scale your marketing, and if you can't scale your commercials, you're knackered. So a lot of people say, I'm really not making any money. I'm making zero margin on this product. But when I scale it, I'm going to have a big factory and my unit costs, are going to be X, and I'm going to suddenly start making profit. And, to be fair, you get a little bit of leeway and go, yeah, okay, your path to profitability, your prudent path to profitability is you will start making margins when it's at, 500,000 units per year or whatever it is. But actually what you've really got to think about is, but what happens, for example, if I've got a factory and then I sell it to a company that is going to get rid of that factory? Are they going to value the factory or are they going to value the brand? Are they going to, is Nestle going to buy my, chocolate bar factory? No, they've got chocolate bar factories. They'll want to put it into their operations. So you need to make all of these decisions about, you make decisions. You need to think about whether or not you're a manufacturer or a brand or, where's the value that you're adding? And is what you're doing so unique that it's valuable, or is it so unique and complicated that actually it's a pain in the arse because no one's going to want that? I'm probably not making much sense.
No, you are making total sense. I think
I
think it boils down to there's an existential question here, which is really interesting. I was writing about this the other day. It was I need to finish it. It was like the Taylor Swiftification of brand building, and I basically wrote this thing saying,
"Well, when you re-recorded all the music?"
Yeah. No, but as in the everyone's told in the challenger brand sphere to build, flip. We're just told to do that. And actually, I was thinking, take a step back. Like, not everyone can be Taylor Swift. Like, sorry to burst your bubble, honey.
I thought I had a
career. I mean, I've been playing my little acoustic ukulele of late, but it's like not everyone can be Taylor Swift, right? So Taylor Swift is the big pop star. So when you know that, not everyone can be a not everyone can be an
altruistic.
Well, no, not everyone can be like what's the a Sipsmith. Not everyone can do that. Like they're a unique example. They're like a Taylor Swift. It's like, so when you know that, you can then actually think, okay, well, who do I want to be? Do I want to build a business where I'm in complete control? There's not investors. I'm not having to bring a CEO in. And then I basically said, you could be like Andrew Weatherall. Well, Andrew Weatherall's a DJ that no one will fucking know. He produced
certainly not me, because
he produced the Primal Scream album.
Oh, legend.
Absolute legend. Made this weird music, but he's super famous to a very small group of people. And I think, well, some brands can be that. Even though the narrative on LinkedIn and all that shit is build, flip. It's like, well, actually, not everyone can be Taylor Swift. Like, not everyone can get those three things right of the margin, the operations, and the marketing.
But I'd sort of say you've got to believe that they can. Because if they get the right advice, this is what I wrote about the other day, which is, I mean, look, we're all a bunch of duffers at the end of the day, but there are some fundamental things that people do need to get right. And I think that people like Libby Gibson, that, you know, you mentioned, or the Houlihan Lokis of this world, or Tim Hansel and stuff, they you know, a chat with them, a 10-minute chat, or half an hour chat in your business with someone, and by the way, you're not going to have to pay for most of these people because they're just happy to meet people. God, it sounds like a new bit. I'm not trying to punt business, by the way. But, you know, it just became, it's so obvious that you need to talk to people who know about these things before you start making lunatic decisions, because it's the very fundamental basics of having commercial rigor that says, I'm going to ask you some really simple questions. And what are the answers to those questions? When you give me the answer to those questions, I'm going to then say, look, I'm going to ask you a couple more. Like, for example, how much does your product cost to make? Are you selling that product for 1, 2, 3, 4 times what it costs you to make? Because if it's anything, if it's 1, that's not good. Mm-hmm. You know, so what are your reasons for pricing that product at the price you are? You know, and everyone should spend, even if they're spending a lot of time on pricing, they should spend 10 times more on that pricing plan. Pricing is key, absolutely key. Of the P's of price and product and promotion and place, pricing is crucial. So that's your commercial number one. You know?
Let's go into pricing quickly, and let's just say.
The Taylor Swift thing is, Taylor Swift is an amazing rock star, you know, and you can't get those tickets for love nor money. She's scarce, so you know, only X people fit into an arena. There are only 365 days she could be on stage. That's her haute couture. That's the ultimate experience. Tons of money probably goes into making that. I'd imagine they make money on concerts, but where they're making their money is the publishing. You know, it's like they must be selling a boatload, you know, of tickets to the concerts, but they must be also selling, you know, tons and tons and tons of stuff to Spotify. Or actually, I don't know how they do that.
That's always endlessly confused me.
She's a lot of. But okay, let's say it is about live performance. Actually, I've just sort of been out of date on my music understanding, I suppose. But yeah, Taylor Swift commands. You know, she's got demand, and she's not cheap. So I think back to your Sipsmith thing. Sipsmith was a £33 bottle of gin when we started. I think it was 33 quid. It's probably come down now, but you know, and it was like, what, 33 quid? Am I going to be paying 33 quid for a craft gin? It's like, yeah, you are. You know, and that's the whole thing about better than it needs to be, more expensive than it should be. That's a luxury brand positioning, or a upper mainstream posh brand positioning. It's not 300 quid gin.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think getting those commercials right, and then the operation is Sipsmith a distillery? Well, yeah. It is, but I mean, they sold to a very big company, and I seem to remember that they have very large amounts of distillate, you know, rocking up in big tanks at some point until they could actually, you know, afford to make their own distillery. So operationally, they started to build in scale, but they did it at the right time. They didn't go off and spaff, you know, 12 million quid on a massive fuck-off distillery before they sold one bottle of gin. You know, they just, can I borrow your still to make my gin in? So I think that, again, is that scalable? And are you a distillery, or are you just a gin brand? Because a lot of the brands don't have any distilleries. They just get someone else to make it. And then when it comes to marketing, you know, was their marketing scalable? What were they doing to make their marketing scalable? Well, obviously, packvertising was one of their marketing things, but they also did a whole load of clever stuff with mixologists. So actually their cost of acquisition was very low. They went right for the jugular.
Oh my God, I am so excited. It feels like Hungary is finally swimming in the big leagues. I can't believe this. It's absolutely mental. But delighted to announce that Big Fish, yes, Big Fish, are part of the podcast. Perry's been on the podcast 3 times. Listeners absolutely love it. Some of our most downloaded and cherished episodes of all time. But Big Fish are behind literally so many brands in your cupboard, in your weekly shop. Charlie Bigham, Yeo Valley, Tyrells, Clipper Tea, Goo, Ranna. I mean, mate, the list is longer than the River Nile. But they also share risk and invest in brands that they really believe are a force for good. That are brands that they believe are going to be the next big thing, like Howder, the snack that gives back. But even more exciting news, Big Fish want to speak to the next wave of small challenger food and drink brands that are destined for big things, the raconteurs, the movers, shakers, buccaneering visionaries. So look, if you want to speak to Big Fish and just have a chat, get your brand in front of them, then drop me a message. My mate Louis from Local Beer, Amazing Beer, was in their office, aka La Fish Bowl, last week chatting to Perry, Freddie and the Big Fish crew. So drop me a message if you would like to speak to them. Bohemi, our beloved sponsor, are helping build the fastest growing challenger food and drink brands. Look, if you're a small brand just starting out and you need your first indie stockist, your first 100 stockists to wholesale, Bohemi are the platform to categorically speed that up. But if you're a big brand wanting to get bigger, Bohemi are also insane. They make field sales marble smooth, silky slick. They're just epic. Ollie's been on this podcast twice actually. They saw a 29% uplift in sales when using Bohemi to check major malt listings availability. Insane. 29% uplift by downloading an app. Insane. Lucky Saint, my boy Aaron Duff, who's coming on this podcast in a couple of weeks, he uses it to manage a team of 30 people, and they've, Lucky Saint, have unlocked 500 draft listings by using Bohemi. Look, you've got to get involved with this stuff. It's absolutely insane, and it will categorically change your life. It's just the sickest platform. I use it all the time at Islands.
How do you mean is your marketing scale? The commercials and the operations, I get. I understand that, how that's scalable. But in terms of how's your marketing scalable along that adoption curve? Yep. So right at the beginning, you've got the kind of the 1,000 true fans, people who are obsessed with new gin. And it's quite not easy, but as you say, you can build a real diehard following of evangelists and build a good business. And this links to my point about the Andrew Weatherhall point, right? So some brands will have a great business. White Mouse, who are an Andrew Weatherhall brand, they three employees. They work 4 days a week. Lorcan goes rock climbing on Fridays. Katie and oh my goodness.
You cut that bit out.
Yeah, I'll cut that bit out.
That's really embarrassing.
Yeah, Katie and Jasper, that's it. They live on a beach in West Island. They cook mackerel on the fucking beach. They make serious profit.
Can we stop this? It's so depressing.
They make serious profit, and they are they've got a great product, great brand. They've done no real marketing. They're in that 1,000 true fans bit. All the chefs pick them up. They basically get a PR piece for free, and they've got a great business. And to Taylor Swift, just linking this together, Taylor Swift versus Andrew Weatherhall is like, I think lots of people are trying to be Taylor Swift, which is absolutely, and we're going to get into how you do that. There's actually a lot of founders who I think would actually benefit being like, okay, what do I want to create? And it's a really great lifestyle business, and I love doing it. I'm not burnt out, all those things. So that's kind of the Andrew Weatherhall bit. But let's say we're going for this, we're trying to build a Taylor Swift brand, right? And we're trying to go from the 1,000 true fans. So we'll use Seedlip as the kind of the example, and we're trying to go up that adoption curve to the mainstream, right? I get it at the beginning. They've got the distillery in Chiswick.
Oh, Sipsmith. Yeah.
Sipsmith. Yeah. What did I say?
Seedlip.
Oh, fuck, yeah.
Oh, that's the non-alcohol.
Yeah.
I should have Sipsmith.
Sorry. Sipsmith. How do you scale up the marketing?
Well, that's the point, is that someone like Sipsmith sold to Beam Suntory. So they just want to scale everything, because Beam Suntory have got, I'm sure they still do. They had everything that Sipsmith needed to get to the next stage. So the scalability of their marketing was, well, actually, we've got a really great brand. We've got, fantastic under those first few fans. But now what we need is, the might of mass distribution. We need to internationalize it, go to America and win in there. We need to be in travel retail. So, in airports, duty free. And we need a whole sales force to go out there and, wear out some shoe leather. And do you want to employ 40, 50, 100 people? No. But have you got a recipe to give to 400 or 500 people to go out and sell it? Yeah. So you're developing the marketing recipe book that says, this is our brand plan. This is how you market it. That's a scalable marketing plan. It'll work across all these territories. Okay. So that's the recipe. That's what we do. You see, so you've got a scalable commercial model. You can make profit. You know how you're going to make the product infinitely. If you will never run out of product, because you've got this infinitely scalable manufacturing capability. And actually, in Sipsmith's case, it's London, so that's probably less scalable than someone who says, by the way, here's my drink, and maybe they sell it in cans. But I'm not going to send cans to America. I'm just going to send huge, great containers of the secret liquid sauce, e.g. Coca-Cola syrup, and I'll can it locally by mixing up with some water and buying out a can or whatever. So with Sitsmith, they had a scalable manufacturing business, but actually with gin, you don't really need to make that much gin because it's 33 quid a bottle to make a ton of money. I know we've got tax and things, sorry, I'm going to complicate it. But they had a scalable operation, and they really had a scalable marketing plan as well. And they said to Beam Suntory, thanks very much. Or I don't know what they said to Beam Suntory, but they basically sold it to Beam Suntory, and Beam Suntory said, thanks very much. They just plug it in to their network. You know, it's literally kind of, I'll unplug your small team, plug it into the big one, and suddenly you haven't got any problems because they made it easy to be bought.
Yes.
They were genius. So it wasn't actually about the fact that it was a genius brand. It's the fact that Fairfax and Sam are absolute geniuses.
Well, there's two parts to the genius in terms of this prudent path. It's like
blowing so much smoke out. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, the genius of getting the thing going is, but then also the genius of, and why I'm loving this, mate, is we're talking about the part I haven't really talked about on this podcast before, which is this.
The pot of gold.
The pot of gold at the end.
Yeah. It's important.
It's important because, and also, I know there's, you know, it's. I've got a mate who I can't say who it. I won't say who it is in this podcast.
Should we do more anonymising?
No.
Call him Walter.
Yeah.
Walter.
I'll call him Walter. Like,
Wally.
He's one of the founders I love. I went for beers with him the other week.
Oh, now he knows who you are.
And he'll know who it is. But he was like, man, I don't give a fuck. Like, I want to sell this business. I'm not doing like he goes. I want to build a business to sell. I want to sell it to KP snacks, and that's the game plan. And I want to make fucking loads of money.
Well, but I totally and utterly believe whatever motivates you, you know, if you want to make a ton of money, the only thing you need to do is just not fuck people over, you know. And by the way, everyone does, you know, end up with some situation where some poor bastard gets caught in the trap, you know, or, you know, they're lovely people, but they're not quite right. Then, you know, they're on the bus, it's not quite working, you know, or there's a difficult decision you have to make. But ultimately, profit is not bad. Profit is what makes business. I think I've talked about, you know, profit is the oxygen that gives you the freedom to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And everybody needs a commercially savvy person in a business to keep the lights on, to make sure that no one's suing you, that there's money in the bank, and that everyone's getting paid. Mm. So, you know, and if it gets to a point where you can't sustain that, then you are going to be, well, as a director of a business, you have a fiduciary duty.
Fiduciary?
Yeah, well, you have a legal duty.
Yeah.
No, sorry, stupid word. But that's what they use the phrase. As a director of a company, that's the other thing. I don't think a lot of people realise this when they set up companies. Is that, you know, you can go to jail. You know, you need to take your responsibility as a director unbelievably seriously. And I think that's something that I don't think I've really spoken to people about before, but most of the people I know are very responsible. But there are some people out there who just have no idea. They're so naive when they become a director of a company that there's an onerous liability and that you personally have a responsibility legally. And, you know, Companies House, it's all there. No one ever reads it, but yeah. So being responsible for keeping a business profitable, for being responsible as, you know, businesses are entities, they're legal entities, and you're privileged enough to be allowed to do them. And the law says you can have this, but only on these conditions. These conditions are that you work in the best interests of the company, not yourself.
Yeah. So let's say there's a brand and this pathway, which was kind of analogous throughout this conversation, is they've built the brand, they've got it into Sainsbury's, Waitrose, you know, the kind of usual suspects. Yeah. They're now kind of they've been in the tumultuous waters of the shit. They're now like sort of stepping up, looking and thinking, right, how do we get to this pot of gold? Is it left, right, centre, whatever? And we talked about the commercials. Like, are they making 40%? Is the operation scalable? I think the other
is the retailer making 40%?
Sorry, is the retailer making 40%? Are they making 20% EBITDA? Is what I think.
Well, I mean, there's not, you know, there's different models. But if you said, for example, if you want to sell a product in a supermarket and you walked into a supermarket bar and you said, "Hello, supermarket buyer, can you sell my KP snack? No, whatever it is, my snack." It's £2.99. Well, let's call it £3. And by the way, you can keep 60% of that. Then someone else walks in after you with exactly the same product, says, I could give you 30%. Which do you think they're going to go with?
Yeah.
But if your brand is going to say, and by the way, my brand of lovely peanut snacky things is already massively cult and popular. So, 30 units are going to fly off the shelves every week. And the one that comes in is, looks like a dog. Again, you're more saleable. And so that rate of sale and that margin is your unfair advantage. And that's what about building brands is all about. It's about saying, I want to be easy to do business with. I want to make my brand really easy for me to go into somewhere and say, do you know what? I don't have a problem with margins because I've managed to get really good margins. I've got a great quality product. My brand is loved universally. So you're not taking any risk. You're de-risking it for the person who's selling it for you. And it's making them money because it's their business is to help sell your product. And then ultimately, when you look back at your numbers and you said, and by the way, that's going to leave me with enough surplus cash to keep onwardly investing, growing this business so that I can keep ploughing it back in to things that are going to keep increasing my chances of sale, of growth. So it's all about that margin. Because without that, you can't offer them, you're not an attractive proposition. So what happens is, and so many times someone walks in with a killer product and you taste, you go, oh my God, that is amazing. And they go, yeah, it's incredible. It is very expensive to make. And you go, oh God, that's a shame, is it? And how much do you make when you sell it to supermarkets? Well, actually, at the moment we kind of break even. You go, what? Why would you do that? Well, I think maybe we're going to be able to get some margins if we kind of sell 50 units a week to product. And then they never get off the ground.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways that people can? So I think boiling this down. This is what Adam from Innocent said to me the other day when we were talking about how they sold to Coca-Cola. He goes, you can boil it down into a sentence. Does it add to the category? Yeah. And those three things: the operations,
marketing,
the commercials, operations, and the marketing. But ultimately, the North Star for to getting to that pot of gold is: does it add to the category? And those are the three kind of levers you can pull. Commerciality, whatever the fuck it is. I need more coffee.
Do you want a coffee?
No, it's all good. Yeah, no worries.
What are the ways that they can?
So we're kind of saying that to get to the pot of gold, it's does our brand add to the category? Because then you're very lucrative to someone to sell to, right? That's the kind of
if you're growing, if you're helping the category grow, and if you're helping the retailer make they sweat their space, whether that's even shelf space, it comes at a premium. So I was asked this question of, how much do you think it costs the retailer to put that on their shelves? They're looking at price per square inch coming back to them. They spend X amount on a store. If they're Picnic, they don't have any shelves, or Ocado or whatever. So you've just got to think about their business and what's going to help them. And then when it comes to the category, there's a consumer eye view, which is, where is the consumer being underserved in this category? Is there inconvenience that you could make it more convenient? Is there a lack of taste? Is everything a bit bland and shit? Is it unhealthy? Is it? Yes, but I can't think of any more. There are lots more. So you just think about all of those things of, are you helping the consumer? So that's going to increase the chances of improving your chances in the category of being better. And if you're really good, could we be the only one in the category? That's really, really becomes very exciting. That does X, that we are the only ones in the category that can deliver, that quality, that price, but also that that have actually also managed to displace bad with good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So categories generally play to the best player. Marks and Spencer's being a classic, So Marks and Spencer's generally set the quality benchmark for food in most categories. And what you tend to do is say, what are M&S doing? It's their food development. Can we make it as good as M&S? And M&S obviously is only available, or up until recently, was only available in M&S stores. I mean, now you get a bloody Airwines and, to call it. So I think you look at the category and you go, can we set a standard? So was it Adam? I don't know the Innocent guys actually, but is it Adam?
Yeah.
So I mean, he's absolutely right. when we did Dorest Cereals all those years ago, I remember the category, even though it was a small one, grew at 35% suddenly. It was just like grew. So the retailers go, oh, thanks, guys. You've created a symbol of reevaluation. It's what Adam Morgan calls it. Is something's changed, which means that everyone reevaluates the category.
Yes, that's what Bold Bean are doing with beans.
Oh gosh, she's amazing.
Perfect.
Amelia
Yeah,
is. I mean, I don't know her. I met her briefly, and she sent me a ton of that stuff. She's brilliant.
Well, so I've known her since 2017. I've known her for ages. She was going to call it Humble Bean. And
you changed it.
No, not me, but she put it as on a WhatsApp group. I was like, don't call it Humble Bean because you're not humble. No, not that she is humble, but like the brand needs to be like.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, but she. But I think the M&S thing. Yeah, M&S have got these. I think for.
So hang on, what do you think Amelia has? Just out of interest, what do you think Amelia's done to the category?
I think she has. So no one was shopping beans because it was tinned and shit. Point one.
Yeah, so she's focused.
So she's added quality and taste. She set that bar as what was that Adam Morgan's phrase?
A symbol of a reevaluation.
Symbol of reevaluation. Second thing, there's I don't like the word trend, but I think there's a genuine fix in movement, like a permanent change is actually the better way of saying it.
What we were talking right at the beginning.
In terms of
move to plants.
Move to plant, not plant based, but a move to. So move to
non-meat.
Plants, which she's caught on to. I think she's done an amazing job of actually at the minute focusing, 2 years ago, focusing on that diehard group of 1,000 true fans, the evangelists. So she knew from her previous job all the best chefs in London.
What did she do?
She used to work for a company called Food Chain, which basically this is wrong, but what I vaguely remember is it was kind of like. Do you remember Farm Drop?
Yeah.
Imagine Farm Drop, four chefs. So she was basically out on the road selling into all these chefs. So when she launched her brand, she was like, right, I need you. So basically, the chefs had the status and the authority. Yeah. In that word. So, she goes into coal rooms in Peckham. Oh, we're using these beans. So she got all that on social media. So she had that dial thing. So that was the other thing she got going. Product tastes fucking banging.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the three factors.
The reason I asked is I was interested in what because you're so good at observing. I mean, you're like Seth. You're insightful at observations. We always talk about observations, provocations, and recommendations. But that you've just nailed it there, which is there's Amelia. She was doing something. She noticed something.
Yeah.
She noticed that thing I was talking about earlier, which is like, hang on. I've just noticed everyone's wandering around wearing peasant smocks. It's peasants they've all got mullets. She noticed beans.
Yeah.
And then she just focused on beans, which is what I was saying last night to everyone. I was like, don't chase too many tennis balls. Focus. She focused on one thing. Mm. And she said, I'm going to go bean. Bean. And actually, she also noticed that when it comes to protein, what do you do if you take meat out of the equation and you don't synthesize and create a whole load of faux shitty meat with lots of horrible processes? So unprocessed protein with a single source. And the genius, I think, of her was that actually she's not said don't eat meat and whatever, because you can put a whole load of steak and ale pie with those beans, or you can eat them on their own. They are versatile.
Hi guys, super quick one. So excited. Look, for years I've been badgering on about Hungry the podcast. You're probably bored to death. Thanks for putting up with me. But Hungry is also an agency, and we look after one amazing brand called Islands Chocolate. We've had a great time over the year. We've won listings at a load of wholesalers. We've won Milk and More. We've got our first grocery listing coming very soon, which is very, very sick. But what I'm thrilled to announce is Hungry is merging with HC Consulting. My boy Harry Clark and his wonderful team, he's an absolute G. They do brand strategy, new business and account management. But why I really love working with Harry and why we've got on so well over the last couple of months is Harry was actually the founder of the boozy isolate brand Pops. So he's been in the trenches, he's grafted his face off, he's had the sleepless nights, he's had the turmoil, he's had the triumph, he knows what it is to be a founder, he is a founder. And he's got a proven track record in grocery and out of home. Holy moly dips, the gut stuff, Savile drinks, Remio gelato. So if you're a brand and you're stuck, you're looking for like new business help, you're looking to scale, drop us a message, we'd love to chat. Thank you so much. Back to the old episode.
the way ideas change, and this what Rory was telling me, is this thing called the adjacent possible, which is basically you basically said the way people eat meat, the way alcohol-free movement booted off was not this die-hard zealots of we don't drink. That's not the way the category's grown.
No.
It's the adjacent possible. So say this
Drink
is
less.
this is the thing. Is it's like right. This is the theoretical.
Hard line.
Yeah, the theoretical like perfect is basically what. So right, no one is going to eat vegan meat. No one is going to ever drink again. That's the theoretical perfect. I think this is the adjacent possible, which is how ideas actually grow. Is instead of saying I'm going to drink Lucky Saint every time I go out and piss up, it's like well I'm going to get slightly piddled, which is what I do. Parachute in a couple of Lucky Saints, even out the ship slightly, and then I'll go back to some fucking normal beers.
Yeah.
That is the way ideas spread. It's the adjacent possible with
I bet
beans.
you never do that.
I actually do.
I bet that's literally never happened.
No, it actually has. So I'm not drinking.
I'll have another pint of Guinness. Oh no, I'll have a Lucky Saint.
Well, no, it's actually more my mates saying Mayday, Mayday, Pope's off his nut. Yeah. Start walking around all catatonic cruiser like. But that's the way ideas spread, and I think what Amelia's done so well is she's the darling example of the adjacent possible, which is the theoretical perfect, which is you only have to eat beans every single fucking meal of the week. It's like, well, maybe instead of pasta, use beans. And that's what, she's doing all the marketing. Maybe have a steak, but instead of having potatoes, have beans. A lot of what she's doing is the adjacent possible, which is Rory's theory. And it's like, no wonder. And then I think more people are substituting substituting pasta for beans.
Yeah,
I think that's the way ideas spread.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way this conversation is meandering. I doubt your audience do.
No, honestly, the best ones are the ones that just go.
Well, I suppose, to bring back some framework of what, I can't remember what you actually wanted to talk about, by the way. I don't think we ever got to that, but I suppose I was just rambling on about my experience of last night and launching Loncaro and meeting all of these entrepreneurs. So I went to 2 events. I went to, and it's relevant back to the beans, which is, I went to the launch of this startup that we've done called Loncaro, which is this long finish, brilliant, absolutely fantastic drink. I've got cans of them, which is trying to displace cider and beer because not everyone wants cider and beer. And you drink this in pints, and it's kind of soda, gin, lime, and a bit of pine and pink grapefruit. And that category, is a really interesting one, as are beans, as are all of these things, because someone comes along, like Amelia or Loncaro, and says, there's nothing new here. I've got, nobody's given me anything new. And people love new. And new doesn't last that long, if I'm honest. At one point the world didn't even know how to pronounce quinoa. Now quinoa's...
Quinoa, I used to put quinoa.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're always trying to bring, in Adam's, you're always trying to bring something new to the category. But you've got to leave it long enough so it starts getting into popular culture and actually normalise it. And Rory's absolutely right. Going in and thinking everybody will now stop eating meat and they will only eat beans is basically psychotic. It's like sort of world domination. But I think the nudging theory of if everyone was just to do a little bit less, and they were to drink, maybe for example, displace their drinking with beer substitutes, or in the case of Loncaro, it's actually booze. I mean, it's an alcoholic drink, but it's kind of saying, well, when I drink a pint of something, what can I drink? And what their insight was, well, younger people like us go in and we don't want to session on cider because it's kind of sweet and it makes us feel
cider's crusty as well.
Yeah, and it's a bit old now, but cider came back and now it was new and it's exciting. I don't really want. I'm a bit done with my beers and craft beer. I'm out at a festival. This is an outsider's drink. I'm outside. I want something that actually feels like I'm not really getting tucked in. A refreshing, long, and boozy drink, but it's not going to really take me to pieces. So
it depends when you have.
Well, it's a little bit more alcoholic than I'd realised. But no. So this drink is exactly doing what Amelia is doing, which is saying, guys, this category is getting boring. Everyone same, and not different. There is just same. And they're coming in with what I think is a game changer, because they've said, we've gone away and their Finnish experience is in Finland in 1952, the Summer Olympics happened, and the Finnish government said, we need to do something for the Summer Games with all these people arriving. So they created a national drink called Lonkero. And they went to all of the brewers and said, right, you guys can make this under license. It's called it means long drink. And everyone rocked up to the Olympics, and, they're outside watching the games in the lovely sun, drinking a nice, refreshing, soda-y, ginny, grapefruity.
Is it like a Finnish Pimm's? Is that blasphemous?
Well, I'm glad you asked, actually, because what we described, we spent a lot of time with Joe and Paige in this, trying to describe it. And what we came up with was, we described it as saying I'm going to get this correct, which is it's the drink equivalent of leaping into a freezing Finnish, flinging yourself naked into a freezing Finnish fjord on a fabulously fresh day.
Oh.
That's how it feels to drink Lonkero.
Yeah, I've started doing those ice baths.
Well, this is it. You are Mr. We'll get you. In fact, actually, we were doing a shoot. We didn't do a shoot at the moment. We were about to. And I said, have we got any volunteers to fling themselves naked into a Finnish fjord? We might have to do it in the tent.
Sign me up, mate.
There you are, Dan. I'm glad you've... Well, on record, I'm excellent. You are now our Lonkero model.
I've started doing it, but I'm just like... I feel like... I go to the David Lloyd, and there's a cold bath in there. The other day I went in, and there's this bloke... Me and my mate go to the gym, there's this bloke who, in the sauna, chews his gum like this. I'm like, mate, I'm in a fucking sauna. Like, just stop doing it. Anyway, so he's jumped into the cold plunge the other day, and I don't know this guy, so I'm being very judgmental. But he jumped out, and as he's gone out, he's gone, and I'm about to jump in. He's all the snots coming out of his nose, and it looks like fucking jellyfish in this cold plunge. And there's a queue of 3 people. I was like, mate, have some fucking decorum. You know what I mean?
Your mucus.
Yeah.
Is now
it's just like, I was like, what the fuck? And he sits in the
and there we were a minute ago in the wonderful Finnish fjord, leaping in, and now we're in this filthy,
well, that's what I'm saying. I may need to go more
get outside.
Au naturel. But yeah, so I think...
But back to the category, the thing is that my prediction is that the category will suddenly wake up and everyone will be drinking. I mean, I know I'm deluded. Everyone will be going, hang on, sorry, I'm going to have to go and get the door. Because it's our coffee.
Oh, sweet.
Have
you met Brittany?
Yes. Thank you so much.
So yeah, there you are.
Thank you.
All right. The category needs a kick in the arse. And, people like Amelia and Joe and Paige from Lonkero are the people who come along and give it a gentle kick in the arse. And not everyone has to suddenly stop drinking beer and cider. They just need to go, do you know what? When I'm outside at a festival, I'm going to switch from cider to Lonkero. It might not take off, but my guess is that people like my 19-year-old daughter and those kind of next generation, they're going to be going, we want to do something new. We don't want to be like our parents drinking bloody Strongbow, and Thatchers and Orchard Pig and all that shit. They grew up watching beardy twats like me sitting there getting pissed whilst they should have been looking after children, watching Coldplay, And, well, actually, that would be good. But we were probably watching some far lesser shit band. But anyway, their associations, they might have nostalgic love of, oh, yes, that was lovely. But actually, new is key to category growth.
Yes.
So, not new for new's sake, new because, as Tom Goodwin says, who I think is one of the brilliant people on the planet, well, many brilliant people, but he's great, is he constantly, like Seth, observes why is it like that? Why can't it be better? Why do I have to do, why do I have to check in? I mean, I look back at Tom Goodwin wrote this book called Digital Darwinism that I always bang on about. And he's a great guy, and he basically is very provocative. And he challenges people to think differently, even when they've done something brilliant. And you go, oh, that's amazing. You go, yeah, is it? I mean, are you really focusing on the right thing? And I think that restlessness and looking at a category and saying, yeah, today someone's just done something which is brilliant, but how are we going to make it better tomorrow? How are we going to make it better the next day? And normally it's by looking at the little tiny things that will make a massive difference, or even a nudge that will say, why do I have to scan something? Why can't AI just tell me what's in my basket? Why can't I walk into an airport and not have to, I went to an airport in LA the other day. I didn't have to give them my passport. That was weird. And they said, and it was I can't remember which airline it was. And they said, they literally had to train us not to do what we normally do. And we were kind of clearly lab rats in this experimental bit. And they were like, no, you just have to turn up and the camera doesn't. And I was like, what? I checked in effortlessly and I wanted to send a note to someone going, oh, by the way, that thing you said, they're doing it. That is exciting. And then, then we take it, it becomes normal. And then great. So we take it for granted. Again, last night, Holly Tucker, have you interviewed Holly?
No, that should be a great one, yeah.
Oh God, you must. You should go on her podcast. I mean, Holly is amazing. So Holly Tucker, she started Not on High Street.
Yeah.
And then she's now got Holly & Co. And she was with me last night at this of entrepreneurs dinner for this young girl, Jemima May, has set up a fashion brand. And I said, the way I'll describe it is she started a fashion brand with a thumb. She just did it all on Instagram when she was at school. It's called No Emotion. And, really clever. Anyway, long story short, last night she had an entrepreneur's sort of dinner for friends of hers and people who had started businesses at her age, that kind of thing, and invited Holly and I to come along to give some sage words of wisdom, which we probably didn't. And I think that the point was that we were talking about stuff and they were looking at us like, what the fuck? And it was literally like the grandparents kind of going, yes, well, back in the old days, you had catalogues. And they were like, what's a catalogue? And Holly went, my entire business was built on a catalogue. I used to produce a catalogue every month. And I was like, yeah, I used to be involved in Bowden. It was all about the catalogue. Printed pages. And they were like, you're joking. And I went, no, we weren't. And so I think the normalisation of category disruption happens faster and faster. And it's exhausting, it's relentless, but it's very important. Because that's how the world moves on. For God's sake, there was no such thing as a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Do you know now the problem is I don't have enough time to listen to all your podcasts. I have to listen to them on double speed. I can't do that anymore because this is my head in. So you're going to have to send me some sort of clever way that I can digest all of your podcasts because there's so many. I'm like, how can I? I'm not walking around permanently plugged in. And the other day, I was like, Dan's been in my head for like quite a long time now. He needs to probably do less podcasts, with me and more interesting people. I don't know, but. How can I get like the distilled version of your podcast? And then I saw this thing the other day, which is like, there's a thing that it's like Blinkist, isn't it? That takes the summary.
So that's really interesting. So that's why I launched the espressos,
which is genius. But those are the ones I listen to.
Yeah. Which is like, okay, what are the best bits? You have it whilst you have your morning espresso, and the whole point is you have. I think what you were exactly what you were saying about the change in and like the newness to categories. I think that's kind of one of the biggest principles of how we get to this pot of gold is like, does it add to the category? The category is always going to change. I'd love to go back and almost this back from the future, as Libby says, or looking, is your business saleable? Let's talk about Loncero. And they're right at the beginning.
Yep.
Like, what are the things you guys have thought about which says, right, this is going to go from, we're going to build the diehard fans, and I want to sort of mentally masturbate over the marketing and stuff like that. Because I think,
what a picture.
Yeah, sorry. But like all the Finnish ice baths and shit like that, I wax lyrical about that. I love that, all that stuff. Yeah. But let's boil it down to the commerciality, the operation, and the marketing recipe book, which you said at the beginning, which I think is beautiful. Like, you can work with so many brands. What was it about Loncero? And then, because I think this will help a lot of listeners.
So 3 months ago, it was a conversation. Today, it's a reality.
Cool.
The speed to market was extraordinary, and the speed of decision making was extraordinary. So I think, we probably have got things wrong. And we, in the minimum viable, ship it and see whether it works, see what works, see what doesn't work, change it and be agile is definitely the Loncero method. So, and again, I'm not going to disclose too much about Joe and Paige's ambitions because that would be indiscreet. But they ultimately want to build a great business. They may or may not want to sell it one day, but we've invested in it, and I think that they would be, what they've reassured, the investors is like, this is a good investment, so you'll get your money back. You're either going to get your money back, so the question you ask is, well, how are we going to get our money back? Germ Page, it's your business. Well, it's like, well, they can either pay us some dividends, so, you put, for every pound you put in, you're going to get X more pounds back over the course of X period because it's making profit, we'll declare dividends. Or they could say, well, actually, we've decided not to do that. We're going to, go for a business, grow it, and then actually then, rather like Sitsmith, hand it on to a partner who we think is going to help us exponentially scale it. So, for example, you look at the operational consideration of how do you make the liquid? Where's it made? Yeah. So they found a partner who has absolutely infinite capacity to make the fluid, and actually, although the recipe is a very, very beautifully fine-tuned recipe, and they've absolutely nailed that. Anyone could copy that, within reason. So that in itself is scalable, but it's also not particularly protectable. So the next thing is, well, how do you get it into cans? How do you get it into barrels? Because, by the way, this is served on draft as well as in cans.
So how do you make it protectable? Is that the brand? The
brand. It's the brand. Because the fluid is, Marmite can be Marmite, and you can have someone else with yeast extract in it, but it's bloody Marmite, isn't it? So the brand is what's going to insulate. So, okay, we've got a great product, but can we make that product at scale? So if someone ordered 100,000 cases of Lancro, how quickly could we respond to that order? And the answer is insanely quickly.
Sure.
But they haven't built a manufacturing business. They'll go, well, what we're going to do is we're going to invest 450,000 quid in a canning line. They've gone to a partner who said, by the way, I can get you from 0 to 60 very quickly. And after that, I will not be the person. We're going to go to this person. We've already mapped that path out, so we know precisely where we will go and at what point and what that's going to cost in order to scale the operation. Yeah. So that's been thought of.
Yeah.
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 And agreed.
Yeah.
The second thing is that, and so that's your product and operation. The second thing is your cost per can, so to speak, or your cost per barrel. Like the margins that have been set will get better. They will definitely get better with economies of scale, because you have to, sacrifice a bit of margin to say, well, we're going to have a minimum order quantity of 5,000 cans or 20,000 litres or whatever. But actually, as I said earlier, we started with a model which means that the business will quickly be profitable, very, very quickly. And they've invested their time as well as their money, but they've invested an enormous amount of time in saving everyone a whole load of money by doing stuff themselves. I met someone yesterday, I met someone this week who had started a business with £1.5 million worth of cash, and they'd sold £120,000 worth of cans in the first year. Germ Page have done the exact opposite, and they'll sell a lot more than that. Cool. So, don't spaff the money,
I love the word spaff. It's one of my favourite words.
So anyway, commercials they got right, and they've got the product, they know they can make it at scale, and then the next thing is...
Yeah, let's go into
the marketing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the next thing is the people. So they don't have to employ lots of people because they've outsourced everything. But suddenly it comes to a point where I said to them the other day, we'll set the brand up with you guys. The recipe book is clear of how we're going to market that. Some of the secrets I'm not going to tell you, and some of them are. But fundamentally, we need to get the brand, the brand communication super clear now, and we don't have to change it every 5 minutes because we got it wrong. We really, really get it right, which is we know who this is for. We know what people are not going to do in order to have this. They're not going to drink cider and beer. They're going to drink this. We know where they're going to drink it, which is outside. We know the kinds of people we're tapping into, which is the desert. People who like leaping into fjords on a fresh day. We know that we're going to be playing in festivals. We're going to be playing out. So this brand lives outside. And we know the distribution partners who are not right for us. And we know the distribution partners who are right for us. And we're going to focus on those.
It's So you've reeled that off super quickly. No. As in a glorious way. Like, it makes complete sense in terms of we know what we're not for. We know where we want to be. We're an outside brand, genius. Yeah. What I'd love to go almost go back a step into the big fish kind of process of how you got there, like how you came to Loncaro, how you know almost that the provocations thing.
Yeah, obs and provs.
Obs and provs, because I think this will really help people who are trying to think they may have a brand that needs to refresh. Do you know what I mean? It could really help people. So what are some of the questions you asked Joe and Paige which came up with these provocations? Because I actually think provocations are the birthplace of noticing things.
Yeah.
And when you notice, you can begin to, because we're an outside brand. That to me is something I've never. That is noticing. We're an outside brand, but like I'm trying to get into how you got there.
So it's just a series of different questions, and to be fair, but Joe and Paige are so good that most of it they'd already thought through. So it wasn't really us. We were just playing back to hearing what we heard.
Yeah.
And then seeing whether they felt that was appropriate and right. So again, different. I can't give you the perfect playbook on what questions to ask because every founder's different. And actually, Joe and Paige are probably not a good example because they're so good.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's the other thing. If you look at commercial operation and marketing, if the operator has experience and isn't learning for the first time, doing everything for the first time, that's an unfair advantage as well when you look at a business. So if you are doing something for the first time, don't be shy about asking someone who's done it a million times before, because that's key. So sorry to
of course.
evade that question, but the process is pretty simple, which is, guys, you've got this drink. What made you think this was a good idea? So you interrogate them about what did they see? And so the first thing they said is, well, Paige works with VIP entertainment and sort of festivals, hospitality and VIP, like a Glastonbury, etc., that kind of stuff. And so she sees a lot of the way that, hospitality works and what people are drinking, etc. And so her insight was, well, there isn't an alternative. There's not enough choice. There's choice. There isn't real choice because it's just different brands of the same fluid. No one's brought a new fluid to market that is actually going to deliver something that would be refreshing and lighter and longer. And somewhere it's not a long gin. It's not a gin drink. It's not a cider. And it's like it's kind of unfamiliar enough, but familiar enough.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah, and there's this whole thing about familiar and different. How you need to be familiar enough for people to kind of go, okay, I'll have a go, but different enough to be interesting and new. Anyway, that's another thing. So the questions we were asking were, okay, where does this brand live? So we always talk about, where will our work live? That's one of the questions. Where will our work live? And it's like, well, it's going to live at festivals. And everything they talked about was about having fun. And actually we were like, this feels to us like Finland is a very outdoor type of image in your head. If you think of Finland, you don't think of indoors, you think of outdoors. So it was actually Tim who said that in one of our workshops. And he went, oh, I think this brand lives outside. So we went, that's great, Tim. that is absolutely brilliant. So we said, well, if we just said we're only going to be outside, what sort of people, what sort of activities would we associate with the brand? And we said, well, someone found a picture. I think Katie, one of my team, found this brilliant picture of these guys having a massive fucking laugh, and they were out on this ice with a sort of ice hole, and they're all sitting around naked, sort of with a fire in an ice hole, jumping in and out of the ice hole, drinking, not Loncaro, obviously. And we were like, that picture in a word, and Joe and Paige were like, that's us. It's not Wim Hof, kind of, marathons. Mm-hmm. It's having a laugh in the outdoors, having fun outdoors, doing stuff that then afterwards you want to refresh or enjoy a beer, but actually you want something a bit lighter. I was like, oh my God, it felt like this drink. If I'd been 18 and this drink had been around and I came out from surfing and that was the drink I would have wanted, back in the 70s. So yeah, we just sort of immediately tapped into it. I actually don't know the answer to your question.
No, what you've said,
it was just visceral.
What you've said, Perry, is brilliant, and I think it
was from a picture and from an
I
insight.
think people can boil it. a few things on this. So the first thing I think is really interesting is where do we live? And I think a lot of people will try and say, oh, we live everywhere. And actually, when you constrain it down, that's when you constrain it. So we live outside, so festivals, so you know who you're going after,
and it's massive.
Yeah, and it's still big enough in terms of that sizable addressable market. It's still big enough. It's not like you're going to, just Wim Hof retreats where there's about 10 freaks who are jumping in ice cold plunge pools, whatever.
You're doing good, guys. Keep going, guys. You're doing good.
Yeah, I would love to do. They go out, they do all that shit afterwards. So that's really interesting. And then I think what is, and it goes back to this noticing thing, and it's something I'm obsessing with at the minute. Is the ability to notice. Amelia's done it. And that's when you find these sweet spots. And the fact it's a picture of 3 or 4, 5 people on this ice thing, and even the vision in my head is so fucking clear of what that is. I'm like, that's the brand. And then a brand is a promise and a feeling. I think if I boiled it to 2 things, it's a promise and a feeling. The promise is that is that great quality drink which you have after serving.
Refreshment,
and
with a bit of pep up
woohoo behind it, yeah. But that picture and that feeling of the ice bath, just that is like going through me right now. Do you know what I mean?
It's just like, what's it like to eat Marmite on toast? How can you describe the feeling? It's like a facial expression. What's it like to drink Loncero? If you could describe it in emotional terms, which I think we did a pretty good job on, which is it's like flinging yourself into a Finnish fjord, and it's alliterative. It's like, I know what that feeling's like. Because you can feel me. When I say that, people go, oh yeah. They almost like, and because it's the zeitgeist of everyone loving doing cold swimming, etc., it was like tapping into the zeitgeist. It was like, yeah, this is bang on. So this is great.
It's like Amelia tapping into the chefs cooking. Because the other thing with this, which I didn't touch upon, is a lot more of the chefs were beginning to cook with beans. So Otto Lengi's came into the zeitgeist with cooking beans. How are you going to... I know you can't reveal everything that's in the recipe book, but we've got this... We've noticed something. We know the brand exists outside. We're not trying to be all things to all people and or live everywhere.
So we have zero money.
Yeah. We've got this feeling of flinging yourself in the Finnish fjord. How do you boil that into a packaged brand? Do you know what I mean?
Do you mean the recipe book for the playbook for how we're going to make it famous?
No, sorry. One step back, then we'll get onto that. Is how do you put it into the packvertising part of it? Packvertising.
They went to a Finnish illustrator before we did the branding, and just said, look, we just did something that just helped us talk about it, and it was like a sort of holding page. But then they actually created a can. They had a minimum run of about sort of 50 cans or something, and they kind of created this red can. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's amazing. And they'd written the word Loncero vertically in sort of Helvetica bold or something like that. And they had this red can, just as a sort of minimum viable product to talk about. And I was like, oh, that's really good, interesting, isn't it? Because it's great to have a start point. It was so much easier that they'd already tried to do something. And I said, why do you think that's not right? And we all said what works and what doesn't work, rather than I like and I don't like. It was like, what works and what doesn't work? Because that's the best way to evaluate creative work. If I said to you, Dan,
that's so interesting.
Here's your brand, okay? Here's a can of Loncero. And you go, oh, I like this. If you're the owner, I like the red and I like this. It's like, well, does anyone really care whether you like it or not? Yeah, that's you as a consumer. I like, yeah? But if you're working to a strategy that you've already defined that says it has to be outdoors, it has to be Finnish, it has to be outdoors, it has to be Finnish, it has to be, refreshing, it has to appeal to these things, it has to sit alongside this stuff, you've got a tick list of stuff it's got to do. So then what you do is you evaluate work by saying, we're banning the phrase I like, and we're introducing a rule which says you have to say it works because, or it doesn't work because.
This is so interesting, yeah.
It's very simple, but very important. So you then go back to your strategy and you go, right, here we are. Here's a bunch of creative work that we're iterating and we're doing together. But we want to make Joe and Paige feel like a consumer. So we don't want to have to give them the chore of choice of saying, do you like A or B? So most companies go, I've done 3 routes, A, B or C, which do you like? What the fuck? It's your job to bloody well tell us what we've meant to do. Give me the recommendation, you know. So it's fine to say we've done this one, we think it's too much, and then we think that one's too little, and actually we think this one's just right, the three bears. But it's not fine to say, here are three options, we abdicate responsibility, what do you think? That's just my bugbear about working with companies. So what we did was we went through a process and said, having got that strategy, Katie and the team, and Sarah, you know, everyone, Hannah, all these amazing people I have upstairs, they came back to me and they said, here we are, this is what we've interpreted as being the world that we live in. The outside, they had pictures, they had logos, they'd come up with illustrations, and they basically had done loads and loads and loads of work enthusiastically that said, you know, school project, Finland, school project, leaping naked into a Finnish fjord. So they had this brilliant picture of this guy, Katie had found, of this bloke leaping up, holding his bollocks, basically, off a boat into a Finnish fjord. I went, oh my God, you found the picture of a guy leaping into a Finnish fjord, naked, off a boat. And it was like, everyone was like, whoa, look at him go. And it was great. And we were like, that is it. You've absolutely nailed it. So we then created a character. Katie said, do you know what? I kind of want this Finnish, I think maybe this Finnish kind of style of very modern, raw illustrations character who is this kind of weird, hairy, you know, long-haired dude chucking his pants off and leaping into a fish water. She literally drew this. And she, you know, she thought, you know, on the can, for example, the vertical Loncro physically worked because it was the biggest way we could get the logo on the can. And when you hold the can, you know, you can see people that the word Loncro is like in your gob, like that. So that made sense. So it was like, well, that works because that brand is really visible. That works because it looks finished. That works because you actually have managed to take this sentiment of it's like flinging yourself into a Finnish fjord on a fine February day, freezing Finnish fjord. You've managed to do that. And actually the colour red was completely wrong. Because
Why was it wrong?
Because it looked sugary and it didn't look refreshing. So actually the white, we all looked at these different cans and different pictures.
What were some of the other colours?
Oh, reds and blues and all this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. But actually when it looked at it, it was like, do you know what? White really worked. White and black with pink. This pink logo because it had a pink grapefruit taste, a sort of slightly tangy pink fruit.
And you're like pink in the face when you come out of the cold plunge.
Yeah, and it just like the whole thing, it was very semiotic. So you're evaluating the work not because you like it, but because it says it's interpreting the brief, and it works because I get it. And if you then go into the next phase and you said, I'm not going to show anyone the strategy, but you show them the can in the context of all of the pictures of the fjord and the vibe of people throwing themselves into, you know, not just fjords, but also surfing in cold water and, you know, and there's a towel with some naked person with a bum on it that says, you know, long live the outsiders, or, you know, out with the nude, out with the old, in with the nude, and all these kind of things, and pants off, enjoy yourself, and all this kind of stuff. You put it in context, people repeat back the strategy verbatim. And you know it works because they get it. And that's how you evaluate the package. And you don't go off and ask 50 consumers on Viper to talk to you about whether or not they like the bloody font. Fuck that. You know, you don't do that. That's what losers do who haven't made a decision in their life. What you do is you go, Joe and Paige walked into the room and we had this film and we did the whole shebang. One route, the whole room, they walked in and they said, we love it, and didn't change a single thing.
I'm
obviously I love them for that.
Yeah, but I think what you've said there about don't go and ask 50 people. I think David Ogilvy's got a quote which is, "You never see in parks statues of committees." Fucking genius. You don't go and see a statue of committees. I love that so much. But also then what Seth Godin was saying to me is, I was like, how do people? One of the things I was asking him, and what you've said there, mate, builds onto his stuff beautifully. But he was saying, don't ask what people want. Don't ask consumers what they want. He literally said, this is it. Speak, speak, speak. Listen, listen, listen. So you do the talking, not well. What do you want? Because that's the curse of averages. And he says, watch what people do.
Exactly.
So what you've done there is you've watched what you've spoke, finish, jumping into fucking finish lake or Freud, and then
or fjord.
or Ford, yeah. And then you
Don't jump into a fjord. You'd probably break your ankles. It's about that deep. Your fjord, massive.
Fjord. But also where I was trying to kind of take this is people who are just starting out. There's fucking tons of actual lessons in there, and I think where you could do this off. You know, you're talking about that brand with the thumb. Is people can do this on Instagram. You've got to just ask the hard questions.
Well, okay, yes. So what happened with again, rather naughty of me, in the process of doing the Loncaro with the team and Jem Page, I was WhatsApping the tits off stuff to friends, which I to make them believe we'd already launched it. So I was just WhatsApping little videos and going, check this out. We've seen our new, which poor Jem Page had never seen, because I was just using that as my echocardiogram to see whether or not they came back and go, wow. Or because I'm not asking them, what do you like? Or what do you think? I'm going, check this out. And then they're going, oh my God.
Just I don't know if I've done that.
Yeah, because you're a geezer.
Yeah. I just did like a slap.
I can't do that, by the way, because I wasn't trained in the art of East End.
Yeah, mate. I grew up. Surrey's biggest rude boy right here. Son. But I think it's fascinating because it is crazy. What I think is crazy is how a change in words can evoke a huge direction and change in what you actually end up creating. So,
what do you think?
Do you like this versus what works and what doesn't work? People can apply that straight away.
I can't claim that one, by the way. That's Jamie Campbell came in and told me that last year, and I was like, what the fuck? I can't believe I've not been using that.
Are there any others in this gestation period of a brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental one is right at the beginning. I mean, I'm bouncing around like crazy. God, someone really edit me. The first question I ask anyone is, how big's your business, right?
I thought you were going to say something else. No, joking.
Sorry, that would be really bad if that's what you're implying. So how big's your business? And what they don't realise is that is a trick question. Because they all give me different answers.
Right.
And so last night I asked about 7 people how big their business was. All of them probably under the age of 30. One said 50 people. No, not 50 people, 20 people or whatever it was. One said £1 million. One said we're making whatever it was, 20% EBITDA. One said we've done X units, I can't remember. And they used different metrics. I didn't say how big's your turnover. I said how big's your business. And what you get from that is two things. First of all, is a metric that they think is important. It's like, what are they measuring when I say how big's your business? But the most important thing is you get an insight into what really they're motivated by. So some of them are motivated by product. So they don't care. I mean, like Julian Metcalf doesn't give a shit about money. He famously doesn't give a shit about money. He just gives a shit about product. So he might say, I've got, X thousand products or whatever. I'm probably a bad example. But young people going into business and saying, how big's your business? Sorry. You help critters. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, happy days.
Knackered can. So yeah, back to how big's your business. If they start talking about product, they're product obsessed. If they start talking about turnover, that they're turnover obsessed. If they talk about profit, that they're commercially. So back to your mate, KP, I want to make a load of money. Everyone has a different motivation, but that first thing is like just intuitively, what are they first thinking is important? But I didn't say how big's your turnover, how many products have you sold. Sometimes people talk about we're in 5 countries.
Is there a right and a wrong on that?
No.
Is it just to assess the temperature?
It's just to evaluate what they hold important. And there's a second point to it, which is They might be saying it because they might be trying to put the business in its best light. So if some people go, we're growing at 20%.
Yes.
Well, 20% of fuck all is still fuck all. So, so if your turnover is embarrassingly low and you've been in business for 5 years and you're still only turning over 4 million quid, or let's say you've been going for 16 years and your business is turning over 4 million quid. You're going to go, oh, well, we turn over about 4 million quid. And I go, how long have you been in business? 16 years. Or in our case, 30 years. Is that a good measure? Well, you're probably the slowest growing business and you're only 4 million quid in 16 years. If you're, for example, if you're a consultancy, that's probably fine. You might be a business that said, we want to stay at this and we just want to keep making this profit. But if you're a consumer goods brand, that's probably not so good because you kind of need to keep selling more and more and more to keep going alive. Unless you're increasing your price and staying at the same volume, you're not really growing. So, I'd say that's probably not good. So if they leave out the fact they've been there going for 16 years, they're saying we're 4 million quid, they might say, oh, well, actually, we're 50 people or we're in 5 countries or whatever. So you're trying to evaluate what metrics are important to them, but you're also trying to evaluate what their bias is. You might be also trying to work out what they're embarrassed by, and what they're not willing to share and give up. And that might be preventing them from going because they're stuck because of the sort of stigma of not being profitable enough, And it's very psychologically difficult to talk about businesses that are failing, for example. People will not want to be seen as failures. So they won't talk about the things that are failing. But in fact, that's the first thing they should be talking about because otherwise, how the hell are they going to get better? So it's like walking to the doctor with a broken leg. I'm fine. He's like, you're not fine. You can't walk. I know, I'm fine. How are we going to fix that unless you know that you've got a broken leg? So the thing, how big's your business is an interesting one. Or how's business? That's another one. Is the state of business. Because where are you now and where you want to get to? So back to the kind of questions that you ask are, I know people, we've had people in the business who've asked 30, 40 questions I found out, recently that we had a questionnaire that we were asking prospective clients. I was like, why are we asking these questions? Oh, because we've always asked them. It's like, well, what are we going to do with that information? Is that just like as a weird ceremony? And then someone yesterday turned around and go, why are you asking me these questions? And I said, because this is why I'm asking these questions. I need to know what's the end of the rainbow for you. I need to know
what are the other questions that take to the end of the rainbow?
Well, the fact that your standard questions, for example, if you're a direct-to-consumer business, the things you need to know are things like, commercially, if you're in the commercial part of the questionnaire, are, what's the price of your product? What are your average margins? What's your average rate of purchase? What's your average order value? What's the frequency? How often are they buying it? Once, twice, 3, 4 times? What's your customer lifetime value? How much does it cost to acquire a customer? All of these metrics are things that you really want to focus on, and you don't want 18 metrics. Most of the time in direct consumer businesses, for example, you've got to I need customers. Ideally, in food, you want frequency. Yeah, you want customers that come to your business. So, how many customers have you got? How often are they buying? And what's their average rate? What's their average purchase? So, those are 3 quite good focuses. I mean, you could carry on with 50 questions, but actually, if you haven't got any customers, forget the rest.
Yeah.
So, I think people are bamboozled by the chore of knowing what to think about first and prioritizing the best people I've worked with. One of the best people on the planet when it comes to commercial businesses and growing them for sale is David Milner. And he has consistently and persistently managed to prove that he knows precisely what to do when he comes into a business. His agenda is, I've got a great business here. I need to make it even greater. And it's normally a private equity type business, and I need to grow it and sell it.
He did Tyrells.
He did Lily's Kitchen, he did Saint Pierre, and he's now doing Crosster Malika.
So I'd love to speak to him actually.
Yeah, well, tell you what, if you thought Seth Godin's intimidatingly bright and good, try speaking to David Milner. David is absolutely brilliant, charming and brilliant.
Well, okay, so but what does he do that you've seen to get to the golden pot at the end of the rainbow? Like, what are some of the things in terms of the way he goes into this business?
Well, he's ex-Mars, so
Yeah.
many years ago, and I think someone like him is the perfect chair for sorts of businesses that want to go through that process of
The saleability bit, yeah.
a founder has created something amazing, but they've gone as far as they can, and then they need someone like a David Milner, who is pretty rare, to be honest, to come in and tell them what not to do.
He's on the board at Dash, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jack was speaking.
I spent time with Alex and Dash and Jack
They're-
out in NA with David. Yeah, we had a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
they're So, what would you say are some of his kind of
Well, he's a very good example of someone who just asks very poignant questions very succinctly and has very little time for people who don't have the answers.
Yeah.
Because he's like a machine. He just goes like, what are we doing? How big is the market? Where's the big bit? What will a small share get us? Will a small share be a big bit of that? Yes, let's do it. No, let's not do it. He's very, very good.
I think what Jack was saying to me is he came into Dash and said, why the fuck, they tried to do the big bottles of Dash.
Oh.
And what Jack was saying is that we want to get into another category, like we can see some growth there. I think David came in and goes, you're trying to sell a bottle of this at, say, four of us are having lunch, right? Imagine coming in going, do you want strawberry sparkling water or peach? It doesn't work. You plop sparkling water on the table because it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And so apparently David came in and was just like, cut that. What are two things you're focusing on this year? You can only pick two.
Yeah, he's the king of focus.
Yeah, king of focus. So I saw that kind of the 80-20 rule of like, what are we going? And then apparently they're like, oh, fuck, we're fucking that right off. That's tennis balls.
Those boys are
they're amazing.
Great.
They're amazing.
I absolutely love them, and we had a real bromance in LA. We went out every night.
LA. What was it like in Expo? What
Expo
sort of,
West.
What sort of brands?
Actually, your audiences should all save up, at least to go out there once.
Because it's this
incredible.
magical place. What were some of the things that you've discovered there, or brands or ideas that really excited you?
Well, I mean, the first thing is travel does broaden the mind, and I know that it has impact and stuff. But look, going out there, it's one of the biggest, mind-blowing, huge shows that you can go to. You can go to Seattle and Paris. It's pretty similar, but it is massive. And I think the first thing is you realise that the world is full of opportunity. It's huge, and there's plenty of opportunity for people to do interesting things. So here we are on a little island, and we're frankly, no one's ever heard of us. So in America, nobody has heard of all of our brands, bar the big ones. So, we spent a week out there, and the first few days I just spent in LA going to places where there's like an amazing farmer's market that's been around for donkeys. Actually, one little business that I want to start. In fact, if any of your listeners want to do this with me, I'd love them to kind of call up. I've been told this is the worst idea ever, but I'm obsessed by it. It's a little shop, which is basically a tourist trap. It's a tiny little shop, about the size of, about half the size of a sea container. And it has 800 hot chili sauces in it, different types. And they're hilarious. And they're, novelty sauces. And it was absolutely mad. And you go in there and, I think, how can I have never heard of this?
And so this actually
This is it's a tiny little shop. And you go in and it's like hundreds of different brands of hot chili sauce, ranging from the hottest fucking chili sauce in the world, it's called, to one that's like $120, which is, they have a chili rating, which you love all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I
know
hot
Seth
sauce.
loves chili sauce. But it's like, this one comes with a health warning.
Yeah.
And then there's silly novelty ones in coffins, and and it's like novelty.
Arsehole incinerating.
Yeah, exactly.
On the Richter scale.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely brilliant. But so you go out there and you see normal and you see global, but what you realise is that it just opens your mind to go, thank God the world is huge, and I might be buried in what's going on in my bubble, and it just bursts that. So the show does that. And then you go and see the zeitgeist, and you can see what's coming on down the line in the next 2-3 years. And every year there's a sort of theme. And, one year it's plant, the next year it's, function, the next year. And you could sort of see whole loads of brands chasing trends and you think, well, I'm not going there.
Where would you not go?
Weirdly, this year, I think I wouldn't go to seltzers. Dash will not be going to America, I don't think, because, why would you go and sell ice to the Eskimos? It was full of seltzers, but it was also full of functional stuff. It was full of low and no. And there was a hell of a lot. I mean, Liquid Death were there in force. So drinks were just off the clock, going crazy. Everybody was selling some sort of, a bit late to the party, to be honest, Johnny Come Lately, seltzers and things like that. I wouldn't be going out to America with any of that stuff. Definitely not. Mm-hmm. But anyway, look, the point is going out to America makes you realise just how big the world is, but also how big America is. And that it just reminded me that I'd be having a conversation with someone and they'd say, hey, yeah, we're a brand of, let me give you one example. Dr. Bronner's. We met Patagonia and the Patagonia Provisions guys. We met Elizabeth from this amazing organisation called ROC, R-O-C, which is the accreditation for regenerative organic certification. She'd never heard of Ellen MacArthur, which is crazy because Ellen MacArthur is a global sensation. She was like, yeah, I kind of think I've heard.
Who's that? Sorry, who's that?
Oh, Christ, not you as well. Bloody hell, Dan.
Is she the organic certification woman?
Ellen MacArthur sailed round the... Oh, for fuck's sake.
Ellen MacArthur?
Fuck Anthony Bourdain, mate. Ellen MacArthur is one of the global legends of our time. You should definitely know who she is. So she set up the Ellen MacArthur Foundation.
She sailed around the world?
She's the lady who sailed single-handedly a catamaran death-defyingly fast and got the world record for sailing around the world in a catamaran. Like, you should watch it. And she set up the Ellen MacArthur Foundation because she noticed ocean plastic. So she has created this insanely brilliant movement, which was all about getting the global industries to really rethink everything about circularity. She is amazing. But to be fair, there I am thinking she's a global association, but she is, and she's amazing. We work with them. But I go, no one had heard of them. I was like, what the hell? And actually, the regenerative organic certification, which one of our clients, Whole Earth, for example, uses because of palm oil, they've managed to find the right sources of palm oil, that sort of stuff. In America, this is big business and big news because they're trying to sort out America's soil problems. And, I had not really come across these people. And the next minute, I'm talking to... I'm meeting with Elizabeth, I meet the guys from Patagonia Provisions, I meet this lunatic guy from Dr. Bronner's who's got this incredible brand, and you just think, God, we're so small, we're sort of here in our little British bubble, and actually the world is full of opportunity. It's so much bigger. And actually, also, sometimes I do get a bit depressed about the state of the nation, kind of, oh, fucking hell, we're cocking it all up. And then actually go out there and go, what we need to do is think bigger. We need to think bigger and systemically help change. Exactly what you were saying, you nudging little things. Don't try and solve all the problems. Dilute some of the problems back to your sort of lucky saint analogy on a night out. If we can do certain categories and displace some things at a reasonable hybrid ratio of, you're not going to clean up the whole category, but you can start to clean up bits of it, then you're going to make an impact. Yeah. And I think that's the lily pad theory in reverse, really.
What's lily pad theory?
Well, there's lots of little lily pads that proliferate and suddenly the pole's covered, I suppose. But, you're not trying to get one big leaf to cover the whole thing and you're going to wait for it to grow forever. It's lots of little things come up and suddenly they make a difference.
It's like
I kind of made that up, actually. But,
I like that analogy.
But that's what I feel about making change, making impact, whether it's trying to do things like a force for good stuff where you're saying we'd like to displace shitty ingredients, or whether you're trying to penetrate a market. Back to Adam's thing about changing categories, I think doing, an inflorescence, if that's such a thing, flowers that are made up of lots of little flowers, like a chrysanthemum, is it? Where you've got, or an allium, you've got lots of little flowers and it looks like one big flower, but in fact it's just lots of little flowers. I think that's the thing, is you need lots of little players to come out and go, this category's changed. And actually, if you're thinking about things like protecting the soils and regenerating our ecosystems. It just needs lots of people to all do their bit, and suddenly, bang! Not one big bloody, one solution, one fits all. It's not going to happen. And yes, the big corporates can make a difference, but their supply chains mostly are pretty hard to change because they've invested so much money in them. So I was out in America I wanted to talk about supply chains to most people, and I realized this is massive.
Yes.
This is big.
Seth's got a thing which is, if you're trying to boil the oat, say you've got purple dye and you're trying to plop it in an ocean, nothing's going to go purple. Yeah. But if you have a little swimming pool, you plop it in, the whole swimming pool goes purple. We basically need thousands of little brands focusing on swimming pools, a bit like linking this to your lily pad thing.
Exactly right.
And then suddenly you have this kind of deep-rooted systemic change. What I'd love to talk to you about, I think we've talked about, is you've had so many amazing successes with Big Fish. What are some of your kind of favourite failures that may have not got out, may have not been
the big fuck ups? The
big fuck ups, yeah. Because I think ultimately another thing one of my obsessions is, I think we've talked about it before, is anti-fragility. So
I always
post-traumatic.
I love talking about failures. Yeah. I actually just like describing the particular ones.
But post-traumatic growth versus post-traumatic stress. And it's like, I think you guys have been doing this for 30 years. And I'd love to know, like, if we could punctuate along the timeline where...
I think I've reflected on this before. I think every business has to go through, if you're not failing, it's the old cliche, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. There's a balance, I think, that you need to strike of how much failure you're prepared to accept in order to get to where you want to get to. And so, busy fools doing the same thing over and over again, failing, and then repeating the failures is a crazy idea. So I think probably the best examples I can use. Oh God, it's a difficult one, Dan. I think probably the best example I can give you of failure is where we've been presumptuous and we haven't done what we talked about earlier, which is spoken to real people outside of quantitative and qualitative arenas. As in, we've relied on qualitative and quantitative research groups, and we've gone, yes, we'll cover our asses, we'll spend 50,000 quid on some research. And I then say, did anyone actually go out to the King's Road and actually ask random strangers what they thought? And I was like, no, we got a blend of respondents, and we did some online video work, and that was being very unstructured, Perry. We've done that, and then things have gone Pete Tong, even though we've had. Well, the research said they liked it.
Why do you think? What is the folly with? I get why people do it. If you're
because basically
it covers
qualitative and quantitative research. Quantitative research is generally done online with a picture of some shit visuals with stupid questions that say, would you buy this? Okay, and I'll get beaten up for saying this because every time I say this, but I still maintain the reason that people use quantitative research in the way that I've experienced it is mostly because they're in corporate organizations with people who have come out of large FMCG companies like Unilever and Procter & Gamble and say, we have to research this in this way because that's how it's done. And if we don't have that, then no one's going to unlock the budget because somebody didn't tick that box. Go to Picnic, one of the fastest growing and most incredible businesses I've ever worked with. They don't do that. They do it differently. And they try stuff, they see if it works, and if it doesn't work, they quickly change it. And yeah, they do a bit of research, but they don't do the way everyone else does. And so, I think the biggest mistake I've done is actually allow myself to be lazy enough to say, yeah, fine, of course we'll do that. Yeah, that's fine. I'll abdicate your responsibility. So someone the other day, literally can't believe this. Somebody the other day we sent some work out. They're going to know who they are. And we had some typography. We were changing some typography on some packaging, well, on the brand. So the brand needed a bit of a font overhaul. And the reason they'd come to us was because the chairman didn't feel that this brand had been well orchestrated. And we'd done it a few years before, and he came back and he said, look, could you have a look at this? Because we want to grow the business, and we've got some plans to scale it, etc. And we think there's some problems with the recipe. And I said, yeah, great, we'll work with you. And we came back with a really well orchestrated and beautiful presentation, showed them what we thought it should be. And there was kind of unanimous decisions by, some of the key decision makers that was great. And also, particularly in this case, the typeface isn't going to help your growth at this point. The brand's been around for 20 years. The font isn't what's going to drive the growth. It's fairly subjective. And this team said, they ignored their chairman. They said, we've sent it out for research. So we've sent both typefaces out to research to see what consumers think. We were going to get the consumers to choose the font. And I didn't, if they are listening to this, I'll be in massive trouble. I was like, are you serious? That is when it reaches reductio ad absurdum, as the Latin scholars called it, reaching the absurd and ridiculous. Why couldn't someone make a decision about a font? That's when you reach a problem in your organisation and you say, this isn't working.
Yeah.
We've got people on the front line who can't make decisions.
What Rory said, which was interesting, is, and it's kind of back to Loncero, is he said decision by committee is both right and wrong.
Yes.
It's wrong in that going out and putting a picture online and asking questions.
Which typeface should we go with?
Yeah, to 50,000 people. That is wrong.
By the way, most people can't tell the differences between two typefaces.
Yeah, that's wrong. And also that just takes all the brave and courage out of decision making. So don't fucking do that.
And it's also not the thing you should be researching.
Yeah, and then, but then what you do need is a group of I think Ray Dalio, who wrote a book called Principles, really interesting book. I read it when I was like 18 because he was P Diddy's mentor, and I was like, I'm going to read that. I'll be minted by 25. Hasn't happened, but
you're rich in life.
He's got a thing saying you need a group when you're trying to make decisions at fast, but you need a group of believable others. So that's you flinging out things to your WhatsApp group. What Rory said about David Ogilvy is he would write an ad copy. He wouldn't go and send it to 10,000 people and say, what do you think? He'd say he had 15 people
my WhatsApp group
who he trusted. And I think that is the art of it, is it's not saying it's both right and wrong. But if you're going out and saying, should we change the typography? There should be, instead of 50,000 people, there should be 3 people in the room who can just do it and then make the decision and move.
Yeah, so like, say for example, I did this many years ago. I think I might be repeating myself.
Yeah, don't worry.
I did a talk for a venture capital company, asked me to go and talk to a bunch of entrepreneurs. Don't know why. And actually the theme they wanted was, they said, could you explain what it's like to be on the receiving end of the creative brief, the process of being, what's it like to be a supplier to these businesses? Rather, you're saying, so that, what's important for them to understand about you and your company and your process, or companies like you, when it comes to briefing and working with you.
Yeah.
So I did a little talk about that. And so I said, look, when it comes to research, when it comes to decision making, ultimately, brave decision makers have to make difficult decisions. And exactly as you say, they need to know who to listen to, and they need to know whether or not they're dealing with their cognitive bias. Are they just listening to I like the sound of that one, I don't like the sound of that one. Is it just confirming their bias, or are they genuinely listening to provocations and stuff and going, I hadn't thought of that, or that's created sown a seed of doubt. That's going to make my work better because I can now go back and use that because there's an insight there that said, oh, that looks like shit. Or that actually looks like spam. Or, if you were to do that, that looks like something that comes from, the colonial past and actually it's bloody racist or whatever. You know, the things you hadn't thought of. That's what you're looking. You're looking for stuff you hadn't thought of. And you're, in some degree, you're also looking for blessing and confirmation that, you know, this is what I heard. Did I like with Longo? You know, we think this works because we want to know whether or not it's sending out the right signals. So there's really good research and there's really bad research. And it's very difficult. You need a whole podcast dedicated to it, and you'd probably need to be speaking to people who are not me about that. But I think the fundamental point I'm trying to make about your believers and the people you trust is knowing what the right questions to ask is the key, and understanding what you're prepared to do if you don't like what you hear. So you've got to go into research and you've got to go into it eyes open and go, I'm going into this because I want it to come back with stuff that either confirms that I'm right or tells me I've got it wrong.
This is such a good point.
If you're not prepared to receive those results and do something differently, then don't do it. If you're going into it just to try and support your decision because you haven't got the bravery to go into the board and just give me the fucking money. Trust me, I'll get it done. And by the way, if I don't, I'll give you the money back. Or, you know, what are the consequences? So in this talk, I basically tried to think, you know, how can I sort of get this across? And there's a bit which is there are decisions that you would abdicate to others, and there are decisions that only you can make. And you can't abdicate, you can't delegate. And I said, how many people here are married? Lots of hands up. These are middle-aged people. And I said, so, okay. And I put up a slide of three. I'm afraid I put 3 women up because, you know, this was a long time ago. And I said, so which one of these people should I marry? And they were like, I said, so should we go to research? Why don't I go and research? Should I use qual or quant to decide which of these I should marry? What questions am I going to ask about these 3 people and why I should marry them? It's before dating apps and algorithms would probably tell me which one I should marry. I was like, you know, it's absurd. Of course, you don't go into research and say, you know, I'm going to marry this person. I've got a whole load of criteria. It's like, you know, it's the person who makes you feel that you fall in love with. It's the person who you, for some unknown reason, very difficult to define. There is not a list. You know, I can't list why I love Vic and why I'm married to her. But, you know, I didn't go into bloody qual and quant research. And then also, the other thing is, I've probably got my mates going, you know, you really need to marry Vic. Yeah. You
believable others.
Yeah. The believable others. So, you know, it's like that. So just think about it. It's like, you know, what would you do to when it comes to those sorts of decisions, those limbic decisions, those emotional decisions, if it was a person you were having to make a decision about, like getting married to or going out with. So that's the you know, that's for me the difficulty of research. It reaches a point where you cannot rely on others. You have to rely on your instincts and to know whether it's right or wrong. There's a logic path and then there's not. Then there's an illogical, I don't know why, but it's what we're going to do.
The bit what was really interesting was when you said the X person, say it's a founder of a food drink brand, does the research. Others, are they prepared to get past their cognitive bias? Yeah. Because I think a lot of research is based on insecurity, thinking, am I doing the right thing?
Totally.
And then when someone comes back and says, for example, someone's got a yellow packaged good, like the packaging's yellow, and someone says it should be orange, but you're so diehard on yellow's your favourite colour, right?
Yeah.
Are you prepared for someone? I know this is a bit of a naff example, but like someone to say orange, and then, but how is there an example? Although that's a very basic,
that's a good example.
Yeah, crude way of saying it, but like. So is there an example of a founder you know who's done the brave decision making whereby they've gone in and not necessarily
I've got the perfect one.
Yeah, they've gone in and said, I think X, the research has said Y. They've got past their ego and cognitive bias and then actually changed the direction they're going.
Well, it's not mine. It's actually David Milner was working there at the time at Mars. And do you remember, I don't know if you're old enough, but do you remember marathons?
What, as in the race?
No, Marathon Bar.
No.
Well, Marathon was what Snickers were called. And they were only called Marathon in the UK, but globally
It's Snickers.
this is Snickers. So what happened was the UK Mars team, maybe UK and Europe, but I'm pretty certain it's UK, had Marathon, which was a massive, it's big Mars bars, Marathons, Twix, and all those sorts of bars. They were huge brands, and the Mars family said, right, we're changing it to a global brand. We can't have different brand names. We've got one brand. It's going to be called Snickers. And the UK team, apparently, and David was saying this story the other day, he said, you are mad. This is going to kill us. You can't change it. It's absolute brand suicide. They said, don't give a shit. We've done the research. It will kill the brand. Said, don't give a shit. Change it. Change it. Nothing happened. Absolutely perfect. Brand carried on. Great.
Yes.
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course it made logical sense. Like, oh my God, we're going to change. Everyone knows it's called Marathon. Well, actually, they changed the bloody name. And actually, weirdly, what happened? And my guess, and as I remember it happening, is people going, oh, no one was thinking about marathons. They changed the name to Snickers and go, oh my God, it's bloody Snickers. Awareness.
Snickers also one of my things that fascinates me is the way a word is written and how it can evoke. So McDonald's is the perfect onomatopoeia. So McDonald's 7 a.m. Have you seen that?
I'm not a massive fan.
Okay, sorry, yeah. I'm
dirty, grubby,
I'm a dirty
filthy,
bastard. Yeah,
foodie.
But 7:45 a.m. and I'm like, it's beginning to create these sparks in me of like.
Well, you are the master of language.
Yeah, but not a hot dog, but a muffin in the morning is that feeling, and Snickers is
alliteration.
But it's that the crunch is almost of the fucking peanuts. Yeah. The Snickers versus a marathon doesn't work, but the Snickers.
Yeah, and also.
The other. I know you've actually teamed me up perfectly on this, but because I know, and I'm not going to say names, but I know someone who has changed their brand name and it's gone a bit Pete Tong, because it can happen. But I interviewed Jack Stein last week, Brick Stein's son.
Oh wow,
really interesting guy, and he was talking about. One of my, I think we both share this relentless pursuit of better, this 1% improvement all the time, and I'm always trying to get things a little bit better. And what he basically said is he was talking about this vanilla trout recipe, which sounds a bit, vanilla.
I had marinated trout last night. It was amazing.
Trout is pink. It's salmon's better looking cousin.
It was.
It's very delicious.
In fact,
don't
let me forget about that. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about the trout. But he was basically saying that so they in the seafood restaurant, which is the sort of the famous restaurant in Padstow.
I've stayed there.
Nick had this. Rick had this vanilla trout recipe, and it was like it was a kind of a hero dish. It'd been on the menu for years, and we were talking. The question I asked Jack is when chefs come in, like how do you balance like this is the way we do things around here, like these are the seminal dishes. Versus like the new chefs coming in and wanting half the reason people want to go to a company is they want to grow. Chefs want to try and improve things, and he was basically saying there's a hidden curse to the 1% better rule, which is basically you start here with the vanilla trout, which has proven the test of time. And apparently Rick came in one day and he'd been in Australia for or just hadn't been, and he was off filming for ages, and they'd had like 3 or 4 different chefs come in and had taken this vanilla trout recipe, and it would end up over here. And it was like, without realising it, they had 1% improvement, 1% improvement, 1% improvement. And then it took Rick to come in from the outside thinking, well, what the fuck have you done to this? Do you see what I mean? And it's something I hadn't thought about. I was like, oh my God, the 1% improvement rule can actually take you off course from the main thing.
Well, also the ting. So I'm clear. You mean you take it too far?
You take the tinkering.
You've lost
you take the tinkering too far.
You're just messing around.
But it's also it's because it's so incremental and it's different people coming into the business. This is a different chef. They're not trying to take it this far. It's just it can happen over time. And I don't know if that. I think that does happen with brands. I think the Pringles rebrand.
God, yeah.
I mean, I eat a lot of shit, mate. So you're probably unhealthy.
I love you're sort of like a wonderful paradox, kind of.
So Pringles, I'm like, because they've done too much. It's like at the minute it's all in vogue to simplify things. I think nationwide have just
done the blandification. Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, sorry, I keep doing this.
The great blandification.
The blandification.
Well, I did a podcast with Holly called Conversations of Inspiration. where I did talk about this actually. Actually, she did a good thing. She makes all her guests at the end write a letter to their younger self. I know it turns out I'd never done that before. And I'd realised that that was quite a clever thing, by the way, and come on. But one of the things that I was doing when I reflected on, when you're writing your letter to your younger self, it's all about advising your younger self about what you know and how you do things differently. And one of the things that it does do your head in a bit, because you're kind of reflecting on all of these things that you think are important. And actually, one of the themes for me was the great blandification, which is that the life of the mediocre, the middle, the dull, the bloody, awful, decision by committee, the stuff that you've been talking about, means that you end up with this utter, dreadful fucking mediocrity, and the tinkering. Because what happens is brands that are not, brands, anything that has a life longer than the people who started it means that it has to be handed over, and that those people will either be, protectors and curators and keepers of the guardians of the great, or they'll come in and they'll just say, well, I'm a bit bored, so what am I going to do? Particularly marketing directors, poor things, come in, especially young and inexperienced ones. They want to make their mark, so they want to incrementalize. They want to make things better. But quite often, it might not be in the best interest of the business, but it's certainly in the best interest of their career path that they go, oh, I'm going to do something amazing. I'm going to do TV advertising. I've never done that, and now I'm in a brand. I've got money.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, fucking TV advertising. It's like, oh, great, and I can move the number from 10% to 12% of prompted awareness and da-da-da. And you go, yeah, but you know what? When you put that on telly, you've just relegated it to shit food because only shit food goes on telly or whatever it is, So I think the incrementalization is like, if you are relentlessly pursuing better, make sure you're doing it on behalf of the consumer, not on behalf of your own selfish career, or not on behalf, your motivation to make things better, back to Tom Goodwin, is do it for the right reasons, focus on the consumer, focus on the end user, not on something that's going to make you feel like, actually, I'm just going to use it. It's hard. I'm going to use this opportunity to feather my own nest with something that I can then leave this business in 2 years' time and go, well, actually, I did a fantastic TV advertising campaign. It didn't, we haven't really had the results yet, but hey, look at my portfolio.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would do the same if I was in a corporate setting. But if you're
was that a bit naive of me to talk about that?
No, it's so true. It's part of, as I said, part of the human condition is to want to grow and to want to leave your mark. That's what happens. But it goes back to the vanilla trout, as you end up here when you should be here.
Well, no one's going to come in, apart from possibly me, because I'm lazy. But no one's going to come in and go, my job is to make sure we don't actually change anything, because that's brilliant. So being paid to keep things the same would be one extreme of confidence in saying we must not change that. And at the other end of the spectrum is we must change things because we have to change things. So I'm expected to change things. And you've got to find the balance between, it's back to that question, is like, why do we need to change things? What are we going to hope to achieve? What is it that we're trying to, where do we think the growth is going to come from? What are we underserving the consumer with, or what are we not doing that we should be doing, and why? And making those decisions is about focus and about knowing, for example, again, I won't name the brand. There's a brand that we're working with which has got a lot of different products in lots of different categories. And their plan is ultimately to sell the business. But that business is complex. Back to where we started. It's complex. It's got lots of different categories. It's got, this and that and this and that. And they're all brilliant, and they're each in their own right. They're fantastic. But actually, the plan is to sell it to a particular type of business. So the person in charge is saying, forget about all that stuff. We're just doubling down on this one category. And the people who've been working that business for 12, 15 years are going, what? But everyone loves this. They go, yeah, but that was the business that you sold me. But it's not the business I want to grow. I'm going to get rid of all that. Or rather, I'm not going to focus on it, and it'll stay around, but it's just not going to be the big focus. Because by doing all that, we're distracting ourselves with this big goal. So back to, what are you thinking about? Where do you want to be? in 3 to 5 years? What's your actual focus? Really good commercial and operational and marketing people make decisions based around that single-minded strategy, and they know where they're going. And I know it sounds so obvious, but my God, it's hard.
Yes, the other example is Lucky Saint. So Lucky Saint are like, they do one thing well, keep the main thing. We're just going to do one SKU.
Which can be quite boring for people.
Well, which can be quite boring. I think that is their North Star. I interviewed Luke, then 2 of my really good mates work there.
Oh, wow.
But then with the retailers are wanting MPD to stay fresh, right? So they've then,
give us something new.
Yeah, the retailers like, give us something new. So they've launched a hazy IPA. Alcohol free to keep the retailers sweet. So I think, and that's why I love doing these podcasts, like, because you pick up on things you're not really thinking about. But it's like, well, actually, it's like, on one hand, you need to be laser focused to keep to have this, to take you up the prudent path to the rainbow. One, but then you also have this other path, which the retailers like, give us something new. What's the MPD?
Well, both should be in harmony.
Yeah. And I suppose it's like, how do you get that balance right?
Go back to the category and go. It's not about placating the retailer may or may not be in the retailer's agenda is to pit a bunch of people against each other and make sure they're competitive and that they can negotiate.
So what did you say, pit?
Well, if you're a retailer and if you're a buyer, you're going to want more than one person in a category because you can negotiate. You're a salad business. I'm not going to have one salad company. I'm going to have 2. You're going to create competition because you want to help make sure that you've got negotiating power and all that kind of stuff. What they don't want is one player. So their agenda is slightly different to the consumer's agenda. And I'm sure I'm going to get shot down in flames for saying this, but ultimately you're walking through the door and you're thinking, am I working for the retailer or am I working for the consumer?
Oh my God,
I'm working for the
insane.
consumer. So salt the retailer. They're just a middleman to the end game, which is the consumer. So the good news is that multi-channel marketing now has opened up a whole load of pain for the retailers because, I'll go to Amazon, I'll go direct, I can do lots of stuff. So I'm no longer reliant on a spotty 21-year-old buyer saying I'm in and out on a September buying window. And by the way, they're not there 6 months later, and everyone's forgotten that you actually did an agreement. So that businesses that want to grow should think about the end user and do everything they can to focus on the end user and what it is that's going to make their lives more rewarding, not always just placate a retailer. Because all you're doing, that retailer, by the way, is probably employing people who are very young, very inexperienced, intentionally changing them a lot so that they don't get too comfortable with relationships. I'm pretty cynical about that, but again, I'm in so much trouble because, one of my family members is a buyer. I think you've got to be really careful about who you're trying to please and focus on the consumer. And if you do that, then the retailer will actually go, do you know what, great. I mean, by the way, I'm being very disparaging because actually retailers are brilliant. But occasionally you get the olive buyer who doesn't like olives. You get the ham buyer who's a vegetarian. These people are not the right posts. By the way, that's true. We've met olive buyers who do not like olives, and we've met vegetarian meat buyers, which is insane.
Yeah, but I think this is a really interesting piece of nuance. It's like, it goes back to kind of slightly to the Taylor Swift, Andrew Weatherall thing. It's like, are you building? There's 2 paths potentially: the consumer path, and or are you building a brand to placate a retailer? And I think
that would be a folly.
Yeah, the two are kind of I think brands start here on the consumer path, and then they get the listings and they suddenly think, fuck, we're placating a retailer, we're doing these joint business plans. And that's where I think that's one of the reasons brands get stuck at that kind of, that 4 or 5 million, or as Libby says, that 7 million mark. It's because you're in this no man's land between consumer and retailer management.
I suppose the interdependent nature of retail, let's not say retailer, the interdependent nature of finding a route to market by using partners who want to get you there, and it's in your mutual interest to sell a lot of these things. Ultimately, what you want is as I said at the beginning, it's good for them, it's good for you. That's easy to do business with because why wouldn't we? You know, this is a great product where everyone's making money, consumers happy. You've got to just get those all, you know, the graphic equalizer, the little, well, no one knows what those are anymore. The little mixer, the sound mixer of going, you know, actually we've got the price right, the product right, the distribution right, it's in the right places, it's at the right price, we're doing the right kind of partnerships and promotions, and everything just clicks. And that is when you know you've got success, because it all goes like that. If you get those little parameters slightly out of kilter, what happens? It's a bit like a bike where one of the spokes is slightly kind of loose, and then you try and tighten up the wrong spoke, the opposite, you don't get the right one, and suddenly what happens is you go for a race to the bottom on price,
so
or
like
you go for
a challenger brand is like a bike then, basically.
Like a wheel.
Well, I'm thinking
a wheel.
Yeah. No, but the first wheel is the consumer proposition and the product, and the second wheel is the retailer, and so like you
liking your visual.
Yes, I'm going around like that. No, but I think I think that's interesting because you need if you're going, say you're a premium. Say your first wheel and your proposition is like a premium kombucha brand. Yeah. If your back wheel is Wilkinson's, you know, where they cease to exist now, then that's just, it's not going to be, it's completely broken. But if it's a Waitrose and a
exactly,
then it's going to work. And then the two things are working in tandem.
Yes, you completely destroyed my original metaphor, but that's fine. I totally. No, but I think mixed metaphors are always fun, aren't they? Yeah. There's the bike and there's the fucking wheel. Yeah. No, we could go into all sorts of metaphors. Yeah. I mean, look, for me, it's about balance. It's about equalization. It's about saying, if you get the balance right for everybody, it's everyone's interest. Ultimately, I mean, I'm not, you know, you want to speak to people loads better than me about all this, but if I walk into a retailer and I'm on a budget, I've got no money, and I've got to try and feed my family, you know, and I'm absolutely, you know, constantly stressed about cash, I'm just going to be thinking about price. I'm just going to be thinking, how can I spend as little money as possible to get as much as possible? And I'm a very different type of person to an affluent person who's never even noticed the price. And there's a spectrum. And it's pretty much that. You know, you've got to serve the needs. A retailer has to serve the needs of the shoppers it's trying to serve, obviously.
Yeah.
And if you're Asda, you know, or you're Lidl, you're really, really trying your level best to balance price and quality. And if it's such a clear answer, we want the best quality at the best price. But there are some cognitive dissonance moments. There's some things that don't make sense where people will pay more money, sometimes for less, but they'll pay more money because they believe it's better quality, and they don't want to feel like they're buying something that is not giving their family the best. And that's what happened with Picnic when we designed all of that. It's now 2,600 products now. It's growing like crazy, about trying to make people who are on a budget not feel like second-class citizens by changing one thing, the presentation, of saying, do you know what, when you buy this milk or this sugar, all these essentials that you would normally have to pay, X for, why shouldn't you be able to buy it and feel good about the choices you make? Because actually when it's in your life, in your kitchen every day, it's not reminding you that you're broke. It's actually helping you feel like you're giving your family good quality, the best you can. And actually, why should cheap things look shit? Mm. And that was a really simple thing that, again, retailers, I'm afraid, God, it's massive, isn't it? How can you blame them? It doesn't look value. What do you mean by that? It looks too premium. What the fuck? What? It's got to look cheap and shit. Why? Well, because we won't sell it. It was like, well, you're not thinking about the end user, are you?
One of the questions I've been thinking about a lot recently is Matt Ridley, who wrote the Rash Synopsis, his progress is two ideas having sex with each other. Which, but basically,
this morning.
Wait, no, but what Picnic is two ideas having sex with each other and it's working. It's the low value of it's the look of premium.
The beast with two bags.
Yeah, no, but it is. But that is working. I think Lucky Saint having sex with Whoop.
Oh my God, Dad.
No, but as in Lucky Saint, the reason Whoop's working is because less people are drinking.
Yeah.
Less people are drinking means because if you drink and you've got a Whoop on, you know how much it wrecks your sleep.
Well, I don't need a Whoop to tell me how much my sleep is ruined by drink. But yeah. But now they do.
Basically, my friends who put a Whoop on, they have 2 pints.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, and this is even the
I'm not sleeping.
then it's like they're on a red straight away. So all those midweek pints, what we were talking about earlier, they're all on to Lucky Saint now because they're like, I need to get up.
Well, there
and
you go.
to
So
the
that's
gym.
exactly.
So it's like those things. I
It's
think
a
what you
driver.
said there of like the low value in retail is like it needs to look low value. Well, why not combine that idea with the idea of premiumization?
Obviously, because
which is
it
picnic.
knackers their premium thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but and again, there's so many arguments for and against this.
Yeah.
But it only takes one person to break the rules to fuck up the party for everyone else. And Picnic have done that, So and very successfully. So I think what works for me in category redesign, which is what we were talking about earlier, which is adding value to the category. What works for me is thinking about how you can make life more rewarding for the consumer in some way, shape or form. And that's the easiest way. Just ask yourself, does this make the consumer's life more rewarding or not? You haven't done anything clever.
The final thing to wrap this up, because I've loved this, mate.
It's probably about 12 o'clock.
The consumer piece is, so how do you make decisions with the consumer's best interest without using consumer research?
Well, I'm not saying we don't use consumer research. That would be insane. I think we go looking for insights. So the other day, there's a brand that we're working with, and our hunch was it was very hard to pronounce the brand name. So if it's very hard to pronounce your brand name, how are you going to get them to go to, how are you going to tell them, hello, go and buy.
Yeah, hello, mate. I just tried the other day. Yeah.
Oh, okay, you really love. Oh, it's the one with the spots on it. So we went out down the road here. Evie and Carrie and the team went out and just basically with iPhones held up the brand name and said, "Could you just tell us? Could you just pronounce it?" And actually, they came back, and that wasn't the problem. They could pronounce it; they just couldn't remember it. And the reason they couldn't remember it was because it's a foreign-sounding name and it's not a familiar name. It was too different. It wasn't familiar. So what happened also was that because the brand had done a really good job of making the rest of in this case, packaging, very standout and really, really strong, everyone recognised the design, the pattern. Oh, the stripy one. Yeah, I love that. What's it called? Don't know. So, with a stripy brand. Well, hello, Mr. Competitor. We'll just make our stripy. Oh, fuck. That's not insulated, is it? We haven't got a brand name. What are you selling to the next person who's going to buy when you go to that Houlihan Lokey conference? Hello, we've got a brand. It's worth a load of money. It's dotty, it's spotty, or it's curly, or whatever. You're not going to rely on that. You're not going to invest 200 million quid in taking a risk on a patent that you can't protect. But that you can't. But if it's a name, if I said to you, Mutti tomatoes, or if I said to you, Peroni.
Oh yeah.
No one says Nastrazzurro. They go Peroni, but they know the brand name. So the point is, you've got to build a brand which is something that people can actually identify and navigate towards and direct others to.
Yes. That's what Seth Godin says, is he was talking about how to wrap a story around a brand. And he was saying ideas are spread. So you basically create your product, you wrap a story around it. You then have the way ideas spread are status, affiliation, and fear. So if a brand should give you status and connection, so I put on my Nike gym shorts, I feel status and connection that I'm going to have a fucking banging workout versus my Lonsdale ones from Sports Direct. Massive different feelings. I get status connection. I then tell my friends about it. They said where brands can get muddled is they complicate a bit like the name. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, this person may fucking love whatever that product is, but they can't remember the name, so the story can't spread, and you can't move along the curve.
Like the rucksacks that have unpronounceable names with a circular logo that I still can't pronounce, but called sort of Fjallraven or whatever. You couldn't say fjord earlier.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that difficult to say can be an advantage, and sometimes it can't, because, you know, like Goo, that was a great brand name, obviously. Goo. But, you know, it was a great brand name because it...
And the 2 dots.
Yeah, visual and umlauts. But in Germany, it's not pronounced Goo. It's, you know, it's umlaut. Sorry, I can't remember. But anyway, the point is that it's weird enough. It's different enough, but familiar. But people struggled at the beginning.
And the Goo in the middle.
Yeah, but it meant something. But in English, the word, if I said to you Goo, you wouldn't know how to write it, G-U umlaut. You just go, Goo, like G-O-O. You know, so when I say, people say, what have you ever done this? And you go, oh, I don't bloody Goo. You know, and they go, oh, God, I love that brand.
That's so good.
Yeah, and so, but they might be thinking G-O-O, and then they see it. Oh, Goo, is that how you pronounce it? So that was a pretty lucky strike, that one. Oh, there's a brand. But old toasted fags, lucky strike. So I think brands that can be... that are, you know, again, back to this, what's the value is, like, can I associate that brand name with a whole bunch of stuff instantly? And do I get it? Do I want it? Can I share it? You know, those are the things that you need to measure. It works because they just get it and they can say it and they can, but it's weird enough. Yeah, I love Seth so much. He's got so much genius. He has so many brilliant things to say. But, you know, is it a purple cow? You know, is it enough? Is it odd enough to get
familiar enough as well? That's the
exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember one of his great talks. He said about marketing. He said, "Look, there was a town in the middle of bloody nowhere in America, you know, and there's some marketeer consultant idiot like me was, you know, brought in to say, how can we put the town on the map? You know, what do we need to do?" And I remember Seth saying, I think if the consultant had said, look, build a 60-foot high lava lamp and people will show up, you know, just because there's nothing else, you know, just build a fucking massive lava lamp in the middle of the city.
That doesn't work for Brighton, though. Have you seen the thing they put up in Brighton?
Does it not?
No, there's like an air it's like Brighton's equivalent of the London Eye. Me and my mates take this out of it. It's like this totemic kind of spaceship thing. I'm like, you can't polish it.
Brighton's already got, back to the lava lamp. Back to the lava lamp, though. But you know, basically, you know, something that's remarkable. It might not even make sense, but it's got to be remarkable.
Yes.
That gets into your head, so that you go, wow, that is odd, but I can somehow. I'm familiar with it. So I went to Seville the other day to see my daughter who's learning Spanish out there. And we went to the Setas. I don't know if you've been to Seville. Oh my God, Seville's amazing.
My parents said it's fucking banging.
Like, you must go. Seville's one. Everyone should go to Seville before they die. Not, you know, before they die, like not to die.
Yeah.
They should go to Seville, you know. But there's a place called the Setas there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they've built this insane wooden building. And it's indescribably beautiful. And it's just the Setas to Seville. And it was literally built just for the reason of something big, interesting for people to go to. And honestly, it makes no sense whatsoever, but it's incredible. And you go up it in a lift and you walk around this wooden structure and you just go, what the fuck? This is a viewing platform, but it in itself is an extraordinary thing of beauty. It's a sort of feat of bizarre architectural genius. They did this 180 show that you sort of sit in the top. And the whole thing is just wonderful. And I said, this is the lava lamp. This is Seville's lava lamp. You know, Seville didn't need that. They had all this amazing cathedral and palace, and it's architecturally just stunning. It's the most beautiful city. But yet, someone went in, rather like the Louvre and the pyramid, and said, you know what? Why don't we create a modern version of our kind of cathedral? Why don't we create something that is going to take this part of the city, you know, and get people to come here? And that's the same with brands. It's got to be remark worthy. If it's not worthy of remark, it's bland.
So bland. So I interviewed the guy Will Storr the other week, and he wrote. You need to read his books, mate. So you've got a book called The Status Game: The Science of Storytelling, and Selfie, How the West Became Self-Obsessed.
Oh, fucking hell.
Really interesting guy.
My reading list.
But he actually co-wrote a book called The Blandemic, and it's all about architecture. Oh, wait, you'll love it. All about architecture. And he was basically saying, why is all the architecture in the world right now so bland?
Totally agree.
So bland. And he goes around with the guy's name's
Does he know why?
No, yes, he goes around with the guy, I'll tell you. It goes around with the guy he designed the London bus, he designed, the new London bus.
Oh, the new one?
Like, relatively new.
Yeah, so
not
like the bendy bus.
Yeah,
Not like the old Route Masters, legendary.
So he did Coal Drops Yard in King's Cross.
Okay,
He's
Where
done
Google and Smarters
Office.
are.
Yeah, Google Office. And he basically said that the issue is, and this is true with challenger brands. Why does it's the blandemic? Why do
I love that.
Why do brands look the same? Same in architecture, same in Michelin star food. And it's basically what it is these architects are making designing buildings to impress other architects,
yes,
not the consumer. And so basically what's happened is you've got all the buildings, every building is these square blocks all look the same because they're like, well, I get status from showing the other architects what I've won at an award.
Look at me.
And this guy's basically gone against the grain. And apparently everyone hates him in architecture. The guy's name escaped me, but he did Coal Drops Yard.
It's not the big guy. That firm called Big.
Oh no, I don't know. The names escape me. It's literally on that.
Because there is a similar. There's an architecture practice in I think it might be in Norway or Sweden or Denmark, one of those laws, and I think it's called Big, and they did this insanely brilliant thing where they completely don't adhere to that rule of blandification, and I think it's on like a power station, and they built this power station, and it's got a sloped roof like this.
Where's
massive chimney. I think it's in Norway or Sweden. My memory's shit, but I'll find it. And anyway, it's got this massive chimney because it's a power plant, you know. And the chimney blows smoke rings. That's the first thing. And the top is a ski slope, artificial ski slope.
Sick.
And he's done living buildings and stuff like that. And it doesn't look like anything you've seen before. And it's exactly that point, which is everyone wants to be the same. Everyone wants to be different, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Which means they're not.
But also, I think the way the blandemic spreads into food and drink is, for example, I always talk about this analogy, but it's like the blandemic is
Brilliant.
Well, the way you can create blandicide or commit blandicide is that you go and look at your category to innovate, and actually by looking at your category you then just create a carbon copy of protein bars, for example. Every protein bar looks kind of similar because they've gone and looked at the category and let's make this ever so slightly 1% different. Well, it actually looks the same. What they should probably have done is gone and looked at that place in Seville, or gone and looked at a bit like with this. Let's create a new drink. Let's go and jump in Finnish fucking Fords. France.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you still got to say it. Fjords. We'll have some fjord training for you. So look, I think my wrap up on that would be that there is no right or wrong. It just depends what you want to achieve. And therefore, start with that first question, just why the hell am I doing this? What do I want out of it? Right back to where we started the conversation, which is, what's my end game here? Or certainly, what's the end game for me, and what do I want to pass on to the next person? Because this is once you start, you can't stop. Pringles, whatever it was. You've got to imagine where it is that you feel you want to get to by when. Look back, like Libby says, and say, in 10 years' time or 5 years' time, I want to be able to say this. I want to stand up at the company meeting and thank everyone for getting us to where we want to go, and say, look what we achieved next year. And if you want to be a mimic and you want to say, I want to be the third mouse, not the second mouse, or the first mouse, and the first mouse gets caught in the trap, killed, the second mouse gets the cheese, And if you want to come along and, be the third mouse, fine, do whatever it is you want to do. And, mimicry is a great way of following leaders, and you maybe want to surf in the wave of the category. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's not particularly relevant to certain types of brands and the stages that we tend to talk about. It's not a particularly good way to change a category, because why would you change a category? If you're doing the same thing, you're not changing a category. So you're probably unlikely to have a particularly successful business if you're not adding value to something like a category. So I think perspectives it's all about your motivation. It's hence to that very first question is, what is it that you want personally as a founder to achieve from this? And how do you want this to end up? And, that's pretty true of pretty much everything in life, isn't it? If you don't know where you're going or where you want to get to, any path will get you there. It's Tom's, brilliant book about digital Darwinism, about, the startup mentality that we always bang on about.
What is this digital Darwinism?
Digital Darwinism is the book that I mentioned from Tom Goodwin, which is, it's one of the great books around looking back at the history of our digital evolution and, rather sort of the play on words of, Darwin and the evolution of man and species. That's why I kind of think it's quite similar to Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, the wonderful story of how we became where we are today as intelligent men, as humans. So I think back to this question of, where, if you would start again today, your life or your category, your business or whatever, what would you do differently and why? And the joke that Tom starts with in his book, which is, someone in fact, he chooses Ireland for this joke. Someone's driving through the island and they stop and there's a chap.
It's an island as in...
The Irish.
Oh, island, yeah.
And he stops, he winds down his window and he says, could you tell me the way to Dublin? And the guy says, I wouldn't start from here. And it's a great thing, isn't it? It's a brilliant question. Where would you start if you could start again, and why differently? What would you do differently? And so that is the fundamental thing that anyone listening to your podcast who is, still, I think, you're talking to founders and entrepreneurs, is do they know where they want to go to, and have they got a clear idea of why they're doing what they're doing? And if so, answer that question first before you answer the next question, which is, who are you making this for? Who are you working on behalf of? Who are your consumers? And why do you want to help? What is it about their lives that you are going to make better by doing what it is that you do? And once you know that is, what do you want those people to think, feel, and say that makes you the only person in their life, the only brand in their life that's right for them? Not just the best, but the only. And once you know that, how are you going to make them think, feel, and say and do those things? Because, you could try lots of different things and probably some will work and some won't. But if you don't have a clear strategy, you're going to end up wasting all your time doing everything really badly and not doing one thing well. So focus. And then the last thing is, which comes back to the full loop of the first question, is what metric? What 1 or 2 or 3 metrics are you going to use to know whether it's working or not? And that's this question that I said at the beginning, which is, how's business, or how big's your business? And if you think it's about the number of people you want to employ because you just want to be, an altruistic business that's for the people, by the people, and it's sort of almost kind of quasi social capitalism, whatever, great. If you want to restore the soils and, it's a means to an end and you're not, you're going to plow all your money back into that, then great. If you're a farmer and you want to build a farm for the next generation, great. If you're a big money-making super capitalist, you just want to buy a yacht, fine. It's knowing what you want as a measure for success. And that is it. That's it.
Mate, as always, that's probably my favourite one we've done. I absolutely fucking love that. I think there's just endless
the meanderings